Good evening, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. On behalf of the district administration and our board of directors, I deeply appreciate your time as we know the importance and, of course, the weight that's associated with the conversation ahead. This is not just another meeting for myself or the folks that you see here this evening. This is about the proposed future of elementary education in the Fort LeBoeuf School District. We all, each of us here tonight, have a deep personal and professional interest, and we are committed to FLB in what we do as educators. Many of us before you today are resident taxpayers, alumni, or our children attended the schools here at FLB. That said, we're incredibly proud of this district and grateful that our children, any child, is able to benefit from the education they receive here at Fort LeBoeuf. We and our children are bison. Let me begin by saying that tonight's presentation is not intended at all to be a sales pitch. Our hope is that tonight we can continue to be transparent in our conversation with our community about one of the most significant decisions we may face together. This evening, our goal is to provide you with clear information, answer your questions honestly, and listen to your thoughts as we move forward. As superintendent here at FLB, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by incredible teachers, administrators, and a community that is truly engaged at levels many school districts do not even have the level of experience. During my time here, myself, my entire team has been supported by a board of directors that is really focused on ensuring our community is receiving a return on the investment they have made in their child's education. FLB currently holds the third lowest millage rate in the county, and on only 8 occasions have they raised taxes in the past 20 years, school taxes, that is. At the same time, our students continue to perform near the top in the region, in the county, and across the state in terms of academic achievement. Over the years, our board has worked hard to be responsible stewards of our taxpayer dollars and allowed us to provide an excellent education at a cost that is less than most of the taxpayers around our region. As superintendent, it would come to no surprise that I hold a responsibility of protecting these long-term financial sustainability goals of our schools and our students. That responsibility means engaging in thoughtful conversations, doing my best to make thoughtful and informed decisions, and make recommendations to our board that are always focused on the best interest of our children. What we are discussing here tonight, the possible unification of 3 elementary schools into one updated, unified facility, is reflective of this, but please know, this is not just about our buildings. As our team continued to investigate this proposal, we have realized that this could be an opportunity for us to examine and creatively set the stage for a better future here in our district. This is about keeping class sizes small. It's about preserving teaching positions, essential services, and the academic programs that we provide. It's about ensuring that we can meet the ever-growing academic, mental health, and special education needs of our children, not just today, but in the years ahead as our student enrollments decline and the costs associated with education continue to rise. It's also about being fair to our taxpayers. Continuing to invest in 3 aging elementary schools is difficult to sustain. Unifying may allow us to streamline district operations, reduce duplication of services, and reinvest the savings where they belong, in our classrooms. We know considering a change like this is difficult. We also know that this proposal touches deep personal and emotional connections with each of the schools and their respective communities. That is why we have taken our time, we've tried to listen carefully, and we've revised this proposal to reflect what we have heard from many of our families, our staff members, and residents throughout this process. Tonight, our team is going to walk you through a couple of key areas: the data and financial realities shaping this conversation, a revised unification proposal and how it's different from the earlier version that we presented, potential benefits and challenges for our students and our communities, and the next steps in the process, including how you can continue to provide information to us. Please know we're not rushing on this decision, and no final action has been taken by our board of directors. This is one more step, an important one, in making sure that whatever path we take is grounded on what we believe is best for our kids. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to just point out a few housekeeping issues and also introduce our team that is here with us tonight. My name is Rick Emmerich. I am the superintendent here at the school district. With us this evening is Dr. Sean Wolfram, our assistant superintendent. Bernadette Walters, our business manager, Christy Rathburn, our director of student support services, Jason Vaughn, middle school principal, Jenna Hopkins, Robinson Elementary principal, Brent Holt, Mill Village Elementary principal, our new elementary principal down at Waterford, Colleen Selaney, and retired Waterford Elementary Principal Emeritus, Yvonne Best-Proctor. Also, just a few housekeeping issues. Tonight's session is being live streamed and recorded. Again, we are hopeful to engage as many community members as we possibly can in this conversation, so we have some folks that may be watching online right now and some who may want to pick up and watch the recorded version later. Those will all be posted on our website. We also want to hear from those who may be interested in sharing their feedback with us tonight. Therefore, we have a microphone. Dr. Wolfram, at the end of our session, will come around during the Q&A, and we'd be happy to do the best that we can to answer your questions. However, I can assure you that there could be some questions we may not be able to answer tonight. Our commitment to you is to be sure to get back with you with that information. Lastly, we have developed a survey that we ask each of you in attendance to complete. At the end of the presentation, you'll notice a QR code on that final slide. We also have hard copies available up here and some writing utensils if you wish to complete that survey here. If you choose to take it with you, that's great. We just encourage you to bring it back to us at a time when it's convenient for you. One item, this is a long presentation tonight. There is a lot of information. Please feel free, get up, move around, use the restrooms if you need to. We will not be offended, we can promise you that. All right, so let's begin. So when we got into unification, there were 4 primary areas that we wanted to focus on, and the first was reducing costs for our taxpayers. We also wanted to reduce the district's annual operating budget, and most importantly, that third bullet is enhancing our specialized services. We'll talk today about increases that we're seeing in mental health. We'll also talk about how we can improve academic support and our students with special needs. We also wanted to invest in improved facilities and infrastructure. So in contemplating these goals or objectives, there are certain challenges and stressors that we face as a school district. We're going to talk about each one of those as briefly as we can and provide as much information. The first is elimination of PlanCon. The second is our district is currently experiencing a reduction in fund balance. We have a decrease in student enrollment, rising operational and construction costs, cyber charter education, and again, that bottom bullet, the growing student needs. So challenge number 1 is the elimination of PlanCon. Just by a show of hands, how many of you folks have heard of PlanCon? Great. So PlanCon is a program that used to fund schools in the state of Pennsylvania to support projects as well as any renovation. In 2015-16, Pennsylvania stopped subsidizing school districts in their construction projects. This is at a time when they were providing about 30 to 50% of the dollars needed to complete those projects. About $301 million annually between 2010 and 2015. So what does that mean for us as taxpayers? That means that we now are dependent upon funding the projects that are happening to school, and those costs are ever increasing. So just a little historical perspective here. Back in 2015-16, the board of directors here was looking at the high school project. And again, the project that we did at that time is known as an infrastructure project, and you'll hear us talk a little bit more about that tonight. HVAC, plumbing, roofing, things that you don't necessarily see when you walk into a building. They're things above the ceiling, in the walls, or below the floors. But in 2016, we went out for bid and got awarded a project just over $9 million. Our board was very wise at the time. They submitted an application for PlanCon, and fortunately enough, they received that. The dollar amount that we received in PlanCon reimbursement was $2.6 million, over $2.6 million. So throughout our presentation tonight, remember, we're talking about challenges and stressors. We're talking about increased operational costs. We talk a lot about millage equivalent. And millage equivalent, in its simplest form, is a conversion of the dollars or the amount of money needed for a district to complete projects based on our assessed value, okay? Now, that money doesn't have to be from tax increases. It can be from cash contributions from the district as well. But if we were to convert that over into a millage equivalent, what would that mean for a taxpayer if it was translated in taxes? And that is $202 per $100,000 of assessed value. So if your home is worth $100,000, in order to make up that $2 million, that would convert over into a $202 increase on a tax bill, or $202 that our district has to generate in order to support that $2 million. Next slide. So challenge number 2 is a reduction in fund balance. Since 2013, our district has gone down about $2.1 million in fund balance. So fund balance for us is important for a number of things. It supports unexpected expenditures that we may have. Fund balance itself is not all cash. There are certain legal requirements that we have to put a certain portion of that, but there is cash available for us to be able to contribute towards various things. But as you can see, our fund balance has been going down since 2013 up until June 30th of 2024. The right-hand columns here are our fund balance from that particular time all the way to last June. But as you can see, there are green and red numbers in the far right corner. Green numbers obviously indicate a time period where we put money back into our fund balance. The red areas indicate times where our expenditures exceeded our revenues and our district had to pull from fund balance in order to balance our budget. 2 important years here, 2020, 2021. You can see, I think everybody in the room knows what time period that was in our nation and around the globe. That was a very costly time for the school district, and at that time we did draw down $1.1 and $1.3 million of our fund balance. So if this trend continues over the next 10 years, again, we're averaging about $200,000 to $300,000 in fund balance reduction over that time period. By 2034, our district could be down to $13 or $14 million in terms of its fund balance. The next slides that we have deals with a decrease in enrollment, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sean Wolfram.
Thanks, Rick. How many of you would believe if I told you our enrollment here at the district has decreased by 200 students over the last 5 years? It shocks me to even say that, but that's where we're at. Back in 2019-20, we were at about 2,100 kids, and we were consistent with that number for at least the previous decade. I was in charge of child accounting. That means that I counted all the kids in the district, did all the reporting, and it was pretty consistent up until that year. Okay, over the past 5 years, we've decreased again about 200 kids to 1901. Just yesterday, I looked at our current enrollment. We're at 1898, so right now we're pretty consistent. Okay, you might say, well, why? How can we be losing kids? Right? I grew up here. Okay, there were so many empty fields out where I live, up in Summit. Right, all the farms, all the development, all the housing, the apartments just down the road here. How can we be losing kids? It's not just a local problem. Right? Take a look at the bottom of the slide here. In our intermediate unit, that's our Tri-County region, back in 1920, we were at about almost 50,000 students. In 24-25, we're at 47,380, about a 2,500 student drop over that time. Okay, so it's not just a local issue. If you pay attention to the news, I think everybody can agree it's a global issue, right? All the experts are talking about how our population is decreasing, and it's going to be a real problem as we move into the future. So again, not just a local problem here at Fort LeBoeuf. Let's take a look at where we're currently at with our class sizes. So last year's 12th graders, the kiddos we just graduated here a few months ago, we were at about 140. Our biggest class size is our incoming seniors at 185. After that, you can see we're 146, 160, 169, 151, 46, 48, 133, 45, 43. Then we can start to see this drop, right? Our kiddos going into second grade, we're about 116. Our kiddos going into first grade, about 119. In our incoming class of 2038, I believe, those letters are going to get mailed tomorrow, so if you have a kindergarten student, you can be looking for those next week as to which building you're assigned to. Good news is we just sat down this week, only had to move, I think, 2 kiddos, and they were kind of in between 2 buildings, so hopefully I won't get yelled at too bad next week when people open those letters and they get the elementary school that they wanted. but we're at 118. Now, do we think if school started tomorrow we would get all 118 of those kiddos? Unfortunately, no. We've got about 12 kiddos that their parents have not completed their packets, have not contacted us, but we all know, I think, how that goes, that sometimes parents wait till the last minute, day before school, sometimes even the first day of school, they'll show up and say, here I am, can I start? So those are all things that we have to deal with. So we're hoping that we get up to that 118, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. So a big part of this puzzle, right, is we need to look at the enrollment. And do we just look into the future and take a guess and say, well, I'm not sure. I think it might go down or it might go up. No, we've got a few places that we look to try and get predictions. First place is the Pennsylvania Department of Education actually does this for every school district across the state. You can go to Google, type in PDE enrollment projections. They'll take you to the website. You can pull up the spreadsheet where I pulled these numbers from. And this first slide is the historical performance. How did they do with their predictions with what they said we're going to have and where we actually landed? So I went back to 16-17 just to give us a perspective here. Left column here, this is what PDE projected our enrollment would be. And then this was the actual size. Again, this is the kindergarten classes, okay? So how did they do? So back 16-17, they're only off by 3, 2, 3. Not too bad, right? Then 16, 11, 2, still not too bad. 17, there's 23, 24. Something happened there. They were really off. They were off by 37. They were predicting 146. We were only at 109. And then 24, 25, not too bad. Only off by 8. If you average all that together, they're off by about 3 kiddos, a little over 3 kiddos each year. So not too shabby, right? Let's take a look. What does PDE predict we're going to be in the future, right? That's important. So you can see for this upcoming year, they're predicting 137. Remember what I just said, right? We were at 118, but we're not sure we're going to get all 118 of those kiddos, right? So we're a little below that. Then the following year, 127, 113, 111, 109, 107, 105, 104, 102. So again, I think we can all agree that that trend is trending downwards. And again, this is not my prediction. This is Department of Ed, their prediction. We look at another place, and that is the Department of Health. They actually publish the actual birth rates in all 5 of our municipalities. So we go and grab those numbers, do the projections, and see where we think we're going to be. Again, this is the same. It's kind of a comparison as to what were they predicting, how close were they. So left column here, you can see back to 16-17, they were predicting 150. And down, you can see the predictions. Here's the actual. So how close were they? 16-17, they were off by 16, off by 1, by 12, 16, 20, 2, 13 again. They were way off here, right, off by 27, and then by 14. So if you average all those together, that's a difference of a little over 7. So again, not quite as good as the PDE projections, but not terrible, right? So what are these birth rates? What do they tell us? Where do we think we're going to land? Oops. Okay. So for next year, they're predicting 142. Remember what I said? We were predicting 118 somewhere, probably a little less than that. Year after that, 129, 140, 122. So again, these are the predictions are a little bit higher than PDE's, but remember, they're not quite as good as PDE. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle. So what's all that mean, right? Hopefully, I think we can all agree that it appears there's a downward trend, right, in our enrollment. So we got to look at 3 things at least, right? That's staffing. We have about 300 employees, a little over 300 employees total. That's teachers, that's bus drivers, that's support staff, that's everybody. Okay, if our enrollment's dropped, right, it's dropped 200 kids in the last 5 years, do we need to maintain all 300 and some of those employees? That's a question we have to ask ourselves, right? Trying to be good stewards. Facilities, right? That's a big part of this, right? Do we need to maintain all 3 elementaries, or could we do it a different way? Again, a question we've got to consider. Funding, right? The formulas that they use the state uses and federal government uses, one piece of that formula is always your students, right? Your average daily membership, how many kids do you have? So obviously if that number is a smaller number, it's going to mean less funding if we have less kids here. So again, 3 big questions that we have to consider moving forward with that first trend. Rick's going to talk about operational and construction costs.
Thank you, Sean. The next couple slides that I'm going to present to you folks are ones that I think we all can at least relate to. They're things that we might deal with in our common daily lives, but they happen to do with some of the things that I think we all can make connections with. The one you're looking at here is an energy savings analysis. The current energy that we're expending at all of our buildings is approximately $250,000 a year here at our district. The cost per student across our FLB is $313. So if we were to renovate at our district, the estimated annual energy saving costs per student would drop to about $229. That's about a 26% reduction in energy savings if we were going to straight renovation. If we were to unify, what would that look like? The estimated savings at that point, cost per student, $195, a 36% reduction in energy costs. So you're saying to yourself, where did you get these numbers? Well, Sean and I are not engineers. Nobody on our board is. These are estimates that are provided to us by an engineer who uses algorithms, formulas, whatever you may relate them to, and plugs in what new equipment would do for us if we were to install it into our buildings. So that's where those numbers came from. You can see here that the most beneficial option is we weigh unification renovation is the 38% reduction in energy savings. So the next one we're going to talk about is paving. And what we did is an apples to apples comparison for what we currently have in terms of our paving and the paving that would be required if we were to unify into one building. Currently, we have 190,837 square feet of blacktop that we pave here at the district in our 3 elementary schools. If we were to unify, we're estimating that square footage to be 128,000. Estimated 2-year cost out is where we're really trying to get with this. So what would it cost us to pave a unified building? That estimate is $1.2 to $1.3 million. Important note here, when you do a new building, it's not just putting down paving. If we were to come and do that with our existing elementary schools, we're just replacing the blacktop. But the cost per square foot for that unification was $10.39. If we were to do all 3 of our elementary schools separately, the estimated cost, again, important note, repaving only, is $1.6 million. So savings to taxpayers in that case is $355,000, comparing unification to renovation. The millage equivalent of that is $27 per $100,000 of assessed value. Now, some folks may say, well, $27 is not a lot. As our presentation goes on, I think you will see that in terms of our rising costs here, that adds up over time. We have a lot of folks that are on fixed incomes, and for some, $27 may not mean anything, but for some it does. Next slide. So we cast this out to 10 years in the future. We typically pave here at Fort LeBoeuf about every 10 years on a rotating cycle. If we were to repave the building, the new unified building, we're estimating that cost at a 3% inflationary rate. We all know what inflation has been like over the past 10 years. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, our highest being our most recent years, and that impacted us as well. But the cost to do that 10 years out at a 3% interest is about $1.5 million. If we were to do all 3 buildings, that cost goes up to $2.3 million. Again, still comparing at a 3% inflationary rate at today's dollars. Cost per square foot, $8.83. So what would that mean to our taxpayers? That's about $800,000, or a millage equivalent of $199 per $100,000 of assessed value. We also took a look at our roofs. We're looking at a 2-story roof in this new, or a 2-story building. Therefore, the square footage of that roof is decreased down to 71,800 square feet. The 3 existing elementary schools, our total square footage now is 174,446 square feet. So we took that cost and we projected that out to 30 years down the road, and that cost was $3.47 million. If we were to do 30 years out, that roof, $8.47 million, a savings to our taxpayers of about $5 million. That millage equivalent is $384 of a tax increase per $100,000 of assessed value. So challenge number 5 is cyber education. And I think we all have heard that public schools are struggling at times with their cyber education costs, and Fort LeBoeuf is no exception to that. We here at Fort LeBoeuf have a bit of a mantra, I guess, if you will. I think our students are best served when they are here in our buildings and in front of us as teachers. We feel that that's the best educational experience for them. However, we've also realized that there are some families that can benefit from cyber education. Therefore, we got into the business because it was cheaper for us to do it, and we have our own cyber program here. Nevertheless, we still have some families that take advantage of the private providers out there, and what they do is those dollars that you provide to us are then divvied out to those cyber providers. So in 2014-15, our district spent about, as I'm looking here, just over $400,000 in cyber education. In 24-25, $972,000. Over that entire time period, our district has invested over $8 million in cyber education. What's interesting about this is you may have seen your tax bill, and there has been an increase in taxes this year at Fort LeBoeuf, a difficult decision any year for our board of directors. That millage was 0.72. That 0.72, coincidentally, is equivalent to what our district is projecting for cyber cost next school year. So the tax increase that was levied this year essentially pays for our cyber education costs. All the other expenses that we talk about tonight are either subsidized by our state with some sort of funding, or they're provided to us by our taxpayers. Challenge number 6 is our growing student needs. And this is probably the most important piece of our presentation tonight, because this is something that is very significant in any public school in the state of Pennsylvania. We are seeing the needs of our students increase, and as public educators always do, we rise to the occasion and do our best to support those children. Because without that support, it is difficult for us to provide a quality education for them. And we all have seen that. So the first area I want to talk about is mental health support. We have seen a significant rise in our students, in our country, across the board, in terms of students who are expressing self-harming behaviors. They are showing signs of depression, anxiety. Those numbers are continuing to increase. Our board of directors, our administration team, our teachers are committed to try to help those students who are in those circumstances, whether that be related to trauma or other events in their life that put them in those situations. Nevertheless, I'm not going to read all these items to you, but these are all investments that our district makes in order to support mental health. They're significant, they're expansive, and they are costly, but they are definitely worth the money, because this is what we do. I'm sharing this with you because last year we spent over $700,000 in mental health supports. The only item up there that received any subsidy from the state of Pennsylvania was the last item on that list, and that was our school police officers. Everything else is left at the hands of our school district, our taxpayers, to provide. A critical job, an important one, a necessary job, but we do it. That converts over to 0.537 mils in millage equivalent, or for $100,000 of assessed value, $53.70 in taxpayer money we dedicate to providing mental health support for our kids. The next item we're going to talk about deals with our special education students, and for that, I would like to introduce you to Mrs. Christy Rathburn, our Director of Student Support Services.
Thank you. So the Student Support Services Office works with students receiving special education, gifted education, and Chapter 15 or Section 504 services. And that combined population of students accounts for about 30% of our overall student population, which is quite significant. We actually believe that there are a number of reasons why a unified elementary school and a campus model benefits the population of students that our office works with. So I'm going to talk kind of quickly for the sake of time, but I hope to cover a number of those reasons with you tonight. So having one elementary school provides expanded program access for our students in many ways. It eliminates the issue of parents struggling with having to choose to send their student to a different elementary school therefore declining often the most appropriate programming and services for their child because they don't want to send them to a different elementary school. For example, in our district, only Mill Village Elementary houses our elementary life skills programming. Only Robison and Waterford house our autistic support and our emotional support programming. If there was a unified elementary school, all of that programming would be available in one building. Therefore, the parents wouldn't have to make that difficult decision to choose to move them to a different elementary school should their child need one of those types of programming not readily available in the school that they were currently in. It also enables combination type programming for us to most appropriately address student needs, as now, once again, all of that programming is available in one building. So should a student need a combination of, say, autistic support and life skills support programming, or life skills and emotional support programming, emotional support or learning support, and so on and so forth, again, all of that's available in one elementary school. And that's huge because it does allow us to truly individualize programming to most appropriately meet student needs. It provides for greater opportunities for our students in low incidence classrooms to participate in activities together more easily and more frequently, whether that's within the elementary school building, say, for example, in community-based instruction, or whether that's on campus with the elementary school and one of the secondary schools in more of a mentoring type model. It provides for greater opportunity for the expansion of our Fort LeBoeuf Futures program, which we've worked hard to develop with our high school in coordination with OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, for our students with disabilities by eliminating the transportation barrier and providing greater opportunities for job sites across now our elementary campus as well. And similarly, it provides for greater opportunity for our high school mentoring program, which currently only the students at Waterford Elementary are able to participate in, due to the amount of time, instructional time, that's lost if we were to try to transport students back and forth from Robison or Mill Village Elementary and still make that mentoring time worthwhile. And both of those programs are awesome, and they're really beneficial for both the elementary students as well as the high school students. Having the new elementary school would provide updated, accessible facilities with dedicated, much-needed spaces for things like sensory rooms, de-escalation spaces, therapy spaces for our occupational therapists, our physical therapists, our speech-language pathologists, who currently in every single one of our buildings are scrambling to find any open space to provide their therapies. In many of our buildings, they're currently working out of locker rooms or converted storage rooms because we're bursting at the seams in the buildings, and there's not open space for them to provide their therapies. Having one elementary school and the campus model greatly improves our efficiency and our coordination of services within the district. It creates more efficiency and our workday credited to less time invested into traveling between schools, providing far more direct service time working with students and staff. For individuals like our school psychologists, our behavior specialist, our traveling speech-language pathologist, our gifted teacher, our occupational therapist, our physical therapist, our hearing impaired teacher, our visually impaired teacher, our English language teacher, our assistive technology consultant, myself, all of the many itinerant staff, a lot of people don't even know exist or don't know, spend so much time in their cars traveling back and forth between all of the buildings. All of that time that was spent in the car traveling can now be spent working directly with students and or teachers and staff. And that's a significant amount of time. We feel that that's a huge one. It keeps our school psychologist as well as other specialists who are important in times of crisis in a central location. So when and if an emergency or a crisis occurs, again, rather than losing all of that time having to travel from one end of the district or the other to get to wherever the emergency or crisis is, where they're needed, we're right there in a central campus location to quickly get to that crisis. It provides for easier coordination of scheduling and service delivery with outside service providers and that itinerant staff, those individuals I was just naming to you, as we'd all be in one building versus 3 and on that same campus. So no more working around Tuesdays there, or she's Thursdays there, or he's only Fridays there, which can make things really very difficult. So for both our providers and our families. And it promotes consistency in the delivery of key services such as MTSS, SAP, behavioral support, school counseling, Chapter 15 504 services, because now all of those supports are as centralized, they're in the same building, and they're under the same leadership. And finally, having one elementary school in the campus model promotes stronger inclusion and opportunities for more successful transitions. It provides for greater scheduling opportunities and the ability to support, better support, enrichment, acceleration, and support services, including greater opportunities for networking with like-minded peers between our gifted students. Currently, in all three of our elementary schools, there are situations in all three of them where there may only be one identified gifted student in any given grade level. So for example, there might be one fifth grader who's identified as gifted in one school, or one third grader, one first grader. So there's no opportunity to pair them up with a like-minded peer, which research tells us is really very important in their development. In addition, the larger school populations allow for better peer matches within inclusive classrooms, creating more natural opportunities for successful socialization and learning alongside general education peers. We can more deliberately separate students who we know do not do well together, and similarly, we can more pair up students who we are aware do perform well together. That would be wonderful. Further, having the greater numbers of teachers and staff in one centralized location would allow us to better align personalities and teaching styles to student learning styles and strengths, which in turn creates a more successful learning environment for our students. That would be wonderful. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the plan that's in place for new inclusive playgrounds. That would be like a dream come true for some of our students who have never been able to fully access the playground equipment like their typical peers, who are able to enjoy all of that equipment every day, day after day, year after year. And finally, it provides for a smoother, more successful transition to the middle school, as a campus setting allows for greater opportunity for interaction with the building, the students, the staff of the middle school prior to the students' arrival in 5th or 6th grade, and that's for all students. Just the sheer nature of a campus setting lends itself to greater familiarity and a greater opportunity for visits and interactions. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Emmerich. Thank you.
Many of us here have heard a lot about unfunded mandates in public education. What Christy just described were things that are associated with special education and the needs of our students. Those are supported by IDEA federal funds, which we do receive money. Regrettably, it does not cover all the costs associated with special education, and what I'm about to share with you is another requirement that we have. However, this is not met with any funding at all, so it is classified as an unfunded mandate. So we have a program that is required by law, or initiatives that are required by law, known as 504 or Chapter 15 plans. These are for students who may not necessarily qualify for special education services, and their needs may be academic, they may be behavioral, it could range in a lot of different directions. In 2015-16, we had 108 students who were on Chapter 15 plans, and they are required for us to put in place. 2024-25, we had 137 students. The number that you see in the center there is part of a report that myself, Christy, and Bernadette are required to submit to the federal government every year. It is an Act 16 report. The lowest category of special education need, that category 1B, when we report that out, the cost per student is roughly about $5,161. Today, we are spending, based on this mandate, $707,000 as a school district to meet these needs of the students. We are happy to do it because this particular program lends itself to helping our students achieve, help them make up some ground they may have lost in ELA or mathematics, but nevertheless, there is a cost, and that cost per taxpayer is $54.30. We also are really blessed here at our district because we have a comprehensive MTSS program. Again, we're about trying to meet the needs of our students, and many of our students do struggle academically, in which we have a cadre of teachers here at the district that are assigned to identify those students, provide testing to those students, analyze those results in a research-based platform and provide service to them. That has helped us in a lot of ways. Number one, helping those students grow from year to year. And also along those lines, it is helping us achieve the levels of academic performance that you see for the Fort LeBoeuf School District. Nevertheless, the cost of that is $611,000 each year. Millage equivalent of that is $46.90 per $100,000 of assessed value. So the part of the presentation we're going to get into now is going to be the layout of the building, the design of the building, the comparison of cost between the two proposals. And to begin this part of the presentation, I want to take everybody back to January of 2023 when this proposal was first presented by the administration and our board of directors. Back at the time, we were looking at a structural renovation of the existing middle school, which is actually going on right now, a relocation of our baseball and softball fields, construction of a new unified elementary school, a K-5 building was in the initial proposal, and of course, upgrades to our bus garage and maintenance building. The estimated cost of that initial proposal was $68.3 million. The next slide just shows you kind of a graphic of what we were intending to do at that particular point. The far left is the new location of the proposed middle school at the time. Down on the top right there is the, well, I guess we'll go to the middle school, Sean. Yeah, that's the middle school you see in a lighter blue there. And then down just to the right of Carmenito Field is the proposed location of the relocation of the baseball, softball fields. Those we are existing soccer fields as they are today. So we couldn't go through this project without trying to make comparisons and take the estimates on what it would cost us to, if we decided to continue to do what we're currently doing, and that is renovating our buildings. In public schools, typically renovations are on a 30-year schedule. And what you see here in the center of this page are the estimates to renovate our buildings based on the schedule that is in place. In other words, their 30-year life. 2026, Waterford would be our next scheduled renovation if that's the direction we choose to go. The estimated cost for that was between $15 and $16.5 million. In 2031, Mill Village would be scheduled for renovation. The estimated cost at that, $13.5 to $16 million. And then 2034 would be the renovation of Robinson Elementary, which is $22.5 to $24 million. The totals on that was between $51 and $56 million. That is to continue to do what we have done, and that is plan for 30-year renovations of our buildings. Important note at the bottom in bold, the total renovation estimate, which would include the bus garage and the middle school project, which is currently going on, was $71.9 million. So along the way, we worked really hard to, some of you may have completed surveys that we have put out, or may have been to our board meetings. We have been taking our time to look at that information that we collect there, and what we did with that is we went back and revised the plan that you're about to see. So I want to share with you some of that premier community feedback that we saw so you're able to identify those as we go through the presentation. So the primary concerns that we saw was the student numbers or student enrollment in the proposed elementary school, increased class sizes, location of proposed elementary building, concerns related to parking limitations, traffic congestions, pickup and drop-off safety, length of student transportation times, the loss of teaching jobs, loss of playground facilities, loss of extracurricular and athletic space, loss of building identities and culture, and then, of course, the overall cost of the initial campus model proposal. All these items here you're going to see, as I hand it over to Dr. Wolfram, are embedded in this revised proposal for unification. So, with that said, Dr. Sean Wolfram.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, so as Rick said, we tried to work really hard to get feedback from the community and then reshape this proposal is round 2. And so I'm going to walk you through what this revised proposal looks like. So as Rick said, one of the big things we heard was that K-5 building, right, is going to be too big, too many students. We were estimating 800, somewhere between 800 and 900 students, right? So the revised plan is calling for a new K-4 elementary building, okay? Location, right? The location was going to be right out here on the softball, baseball fields. People said we don't have enough room, not enough parking, too much congestion, traffic flows would be terrible. So we looked into that. I said, okay, let's move it. And we're going to suggest now to move it down to the south of Carbonito Field. And I'll have a layout, a little plan that you'll be able to see what that looks like as well. Okay? I said K to 4, right? So some of you said, well, wait a minute, what about 5th grade? We're just not going to do 5th grade anymore? Obviously not. New proposal would be to have our 5th graders attend the middle school. Now, that's not anything new. We've done that before. I'm actually a product of that. When I went through Fort LeBoeuf, I went to 5th grade. That was at the middle school. Our team here, our elementary and middle school team, they're going to go into the details. Some of you say, wait a minute, how can we expect a 5th grader to go to middle school? They're not ready for that. And we agree with that. And they're going to talk about some plans and ideas to address that as well. So, if we're going to move 5th grade to the middle school, we're going to need to add some classrooms. Okay, I'll show you a layout of what that's going to look like, but that's included in the proposal. Something else we have to think about is our gym space, right? We all love all the different activities, athletics, all the band uses the gymnasiums, all those sorts of things. Right now, we have 3 full-size gym, right, in our elementary schools. So if this happens and we were to go to one elementary school, okay, how are we going to make up for those gyms because they're used and pretty much used year-round all the time? Okay, so within that middle school plan, we're proposing to have a full-size gym. Okay, so that would account for one of those gyms. I'll get to the other 2 here in a minute. Baseball, softball, Rick said the original plan was to move them down where the soccer fields are, south of Carbonito. That's no longer in the proposal. The proposal now is to leave them where they're at and renovate them, which hopefully you saw on the way in. They just laid the new sod on the baseball field on Wednesday. Thankful for the rain that we just got, right? Hopefully that sod takes root. And so we're renovating that baseball and softball field. Also, we'd really like to get a building out there of some sort for restrooms and storage. Right now we have 2 wood structures. I call them the big beehives, right? They get bees in them in the summer. People get stung, and it's really not a good situation. So we'd love to be able to put some sort of a more solid structure out there for the storage and the bathrooms. Bus garage and maintenance building, there hasn't been a lot of change in that original proposal. That's mostly building systems, HVAC, right, electrical, all those sorts of things. So there really wasn't a lot of change from that original proposal. I talked about Rick, and we've been talking about the size, right, of that K to 5 elementary building. People were very concerned about that. So, going with the K to 4 elementary building, you can see that really balances all of our buildings out to roughly 650 kids across the district in all 3 buildings if this were to happen. So it addresses that concern. This was another big one, right? Increased class sizes, right? Somewhere along the line, people thought that we're doing this to try and cut teachers. Okay, we can't stress enough that that's not the idea, not the plan. If that's something that we wanted to do, if you remember back to those individual class sizes, these last 2-3 years, we could have reduced our sections in kindergarten by 1 and not miss a beat. But we don't want to do that. The board doesn't want to do that. We believe in maintaining those class sizes of 20 or under in K1 and 2, and 25 or under in 3, 4, and 5. Now, occasionally, do we go above that? Once in a while, but we work really hard not to. When a new student moves in, I look at our class sizes, I get a hold of Bev where they live, and if they're really close to one of our buildings, I hate to, if somebody moves in right next door to Waterford, downtown Waterford, am I going to ship them to Mill Village or Robinson? I really don't want to. So we do go above that 25 once in a while, but we work really, really hard to try not to. So again, can't stress enough, administration and the board is really committed. We are not proposing to get rid of any instructional staff. That's that last bullet there as well, loss of teaching jobs. Now there would be some loss of other positions here. That would be administrative, health services, custodial, cafeteria, secretarial, aides, and Rick will go into a little more detail of those here in a moment. And then again, just lastly, again, say for the last time here, we're not intending or do not want to cut our instructional staff. It's not the purpose behind this. So, the site plan, right? What would this look like? So here is Carbonito, right? So this would be the proposed site of the new elementary building. One of the big things, the other things we heard was traffic flow, right? If you put a building out here, it's not safe. Our administrators visited 3 elementary schools. They were 800 and above students. One was even, I think, 11 or 1,200 students, okay? So our proposal here would be, you can see over here on Chestnut Street, this horseshoe. This would be where our buses would conduct drop-off and pickup. And then over here on the west side of the building, this would be where our parents would pick up and drop off. So again, we're separating that pickup and drop-off for buses and parents. Again, trying to maintain safety. Parking, right? We heard a building out here, there's not enough room to have enough parking. It'd be too crowded, too congested. Okay, in the new plan, you can see this is all parking. This is the current Carmen Benito parking lot, which is gravel, and then this would be new parking. Now, there'd have to be some sort of a divider wall, something in there, a partition. We've all been there. There's a pretty good slope, pretty good grade down in that area, so it wouldn't be just one big long parking lot. Also with the stormwater management, right? We couldn't do that, but this would all be parking for events, you know, at Carmen Benito or at the elementary school, and then employee parking, those sorts of things. So that addresses those concerns. You heard Christy talk about playgrounds, right? We have our life skills program down at Mill Village, and we do our best. We've brought in a few pieces of equipment, but it's really not doing justice for those kiddos, and they can't enjoy the playgrounds like they should be able to. A few years ago, Mr. Vaughn and I investigated, okay, what would it take to bring an inclusive playground to Mill Village? Price tag was somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000, so they're expensive. It's costly. These two blocks, this block right here and this block right here, would be two brand new inclusive playgrounds. Our idea right now would be one of those would be designated for K-1-2. The other playground would be designated 3-4-5. So again, we're addressing that issue of playgrounds and getting all of our kids a chance to go out and use that equipment. We also heard from the soccer community, right? If we were going to move the baseball softball field down south of Carmen Benito, we're losing 2 soccer fields. How's that going to impact things? So in this plan, you can see that in that upper right, we're able to maintain that 1 soccer field. Also, we know that we live in Northwest PA. Weather's not always the best, right? Snows, rains, gets muddy outside, so that sometimes limits our recess, that we can't get the kids out like we want to, get them outside. Okay, they'd have direct access, obviously, to Carmen Benito. And again, we all know that this is a great turf surface, and the track is a finished surface. So hopefully we'd be able to, if it's snowy or muddy, we'd be able to at least get them onto that surface to get them outside and moving. Now, back to the gymnasiums, right? We talked about the one gymnasium would be added on to the middle school. If you look here, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but this is basically 2 full-size gymnasiums. Think of that as a community center. Maybe we even put in an elevated track, like over at Edinburgh University, right? We have people that come in during the wintertime or when it's bad out, they walk in our buildings to get some exercise. So maybe we could do some sort of a community center, again, to get our community involved. Let's dive into a little more detail about the new building. Okay, where are we at right now as far as the rooms? What are we proposing that we would need? So, start from the top down here. 35 general education classrooms. Again, remember I said we have 7 sections at each grade level, right? So we're going to need those classrooms for all of our grades. 5 special ed programs, right? That's our autistic support, our emotional support, life skills support. Our specials, right? Art, music, library. I'd love to, before my time is done here, would love to get a STEM teacher as well. That's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, right? Would love to have that as another specials opportunity for our kids at the elementary level. Our learning support, right? Christy talked about our needs there. We're going to have 7 classrooms for them. We have 3 speech language pathologists. We're going to need 3 classrooms for them. Our gifted teacher, our Title I, right? Those are our teachers who support our kiddos who struggle with their reading. So we need 5 spaces. We currently have 5 Title I teachers. MTSS, Rick talked about that. We have 5 of those. We need classrooms for them. EL is our English learners. Those are kids that come to us that don't know English and they need extra support, so we need a space for that teacher. Our counselors, we're proposing now 2 school counselors, offices, conference rooms. School nurse, of course, school police officer. 2 administrators proposing at this point. They would need offices and conference rooms. Our supplemental services, Christy talked about those, right? Our occupational therapy, physical therapy, all those support services for our kids. Our secretaries, 2 secretaries with their workstations, a custodian office, 2 sensory rooms, a refocus room, right? A place for our kids to go if they need to de-escalate, right? To get themselves back on track. Of course, a caring closet. We have a great partnership with the foundation in our Kiwanis Club. Basically, if a kid needs anything from clothes to hygiene products to food, we have a way to get them what they need. So if we need a place to store all those materials. A coffee room, the cafeteria. My favorite time of the day, right, is to eat. So we've got to have a good cafeteria. Right now, the proposal is going to be a cafeteria in the middle. It's just like at the middle school. Cafeteria in the middle, 2 cafeterias on each side of that kitchen. Back to the middle school, right? We said if this happens and we move that 5th grade up to the middle school, we need to add some space there. So you can see here, just to orient yourself, this is the main entrance of the middle school right now. So if we go north, on the north side of the building, you can see we have some classrooms along here, some more classrooms in here. And then again, remember I mentioned that full-size gym would fit right in here. I have a little more expanded view here, just to give you an idea. Again, here's our baseball field. So again, north side of the building, here would be the additional classrooms, and again, that full-size gymnasium. Now, if you remember what I talked about this block meant on that elementary campus, I don't want to steal their thunder, but again, remember, we all agree that 5th grade is not ready to just bring them up and drop them into middle school and treat them like a middle school student. We don't believe in that, okay? So I don't want to steal their thunder, but they're going to talk to us about what's the idea, what would the approach be, again, if this were to happen. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our middle school and elementary team, and they're going to dive into those details.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wolfram. And again, as Dr. Wolfram, suggested or talked about, moving a 5th grade up to the middle school is nothing new. We've done this before. Our 7th and 8th grade, I just want to talk about what the schedule would look like. And our 7th and 8th grade would continue with what we're currently doing, a 5-block schedule. That would include specials and then alternate PE and health. And then we would hope to be adding a 30-minute enrichment tutorial time every day. The 5th and 6th grade operation would look just like what we're doing in our elementary school buildings. We would do two large educational blocks, instructional blocks. One would include math, science, and social studies, and the other one would be ELA. We're going to add recess to 6th grade, again, and that's why we had that playground, that play area. That's very important. They would also receive a 30-minute special, and that would be either art, family, consumer science, and music. ELA would handle our library time during the day. So again, just looking at that 5th and 6th grade schedule, kids are coming up to something they're already familiar with. And Jenna is going to talk about all the positives with that.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. So again, we come back to this question that came to my mind the first time we started talking about this, and I'm sure yours as well. Are these 5th graders ready for middle school? No, we don't believe that they are, and I hope that you get from this that that's not what the proposal is all about. To be honest, we feel like even 6th graders could benefit from a pullback on what that schedule looks like, and just to really, as a big goal, to eliminate change. These kids are coming from being in our elementary buildings for 6 years, and then middle school is a totally different schedule, a different building, lockers, and all of these different things. And so we really tried to figure out how can we slow this transition down, where maybe they are moving to a new building, but we're leaving everything else that we can the same. We're keeping that 2-teacher team. Research continues to support that those relationships really matter. There's a lot of support to show the impact on not just their social well-being, but also educationally, that if they're feeling connected to those teachers. So we feel like that works really well for us in the elementary setting. Our kids feel connected. And how can we continue that connection as they're moving up into that schedule as well? So again, not thinking of it as our 5th graders just getting shipped up to the middle school, really that elementary continuing through 5th grade, through 6th grade, and then slowly transitioning to a middle school schedule when they get there in 7th and 8th grade. The other things that we feel are really important to keep intact would be those celebratory activities that I've got a lot of my PTO moms out here that the kids really enjoy, and they're still at that age where they benefit a lot from that. So things like Read Across America Day, holiday parties, Polar Express Day, plays, all of that stuff we would want to continue for those 5th and 6th graders in that setting. The idea of bringing back recess, I don't have to tell any of you that we struggle with kids not having time to just play, being very involved in their technology and being very content to be on their own. So recess, I feel like when we used to look at recess, it was just an opportunity to get out and run off some energy. Now it's really an opportunity for them to do that and to get that physical activity, but there's also a lot of social, emotional benefits to kids just interacting without the structure of adults structuring their every move. So that we think that that would be a huge benefit to bring up to the 5th and 6th graders as well. With the shift of the staffing that would be going up there from 5th grade up to the middle school, we would have the availability to have an MTSS teacher. Like Rick talked, we have that at the elementary level. I think there's a misconception that, this group of students really have it pretty easy to achieve, and then we have our special education population that needs a little bit more extra support, but there really is a discrepancy in between there of kids that need additional support as well, and that's what our MTSS team does. So we'd have the ability to move one of those staff members into that role with 5th and 6th grade to be able to boost and support students that might be falling a little bit behind grade level. Also, I know we hold a lot of value in our school counselors. Ours is sitting right in here tonight. We currently have 3 school counselors at the elementary because we have 3 buildings. We feel strongly that 2 school counselors at this combined building, especially just K to 4, would be ideal, and having an additional counselor then be able to go up to the middle school and be able to have 2 counselors at the middle school would be a huge benefit of this plan as well. And when Jason talked about the specials, having our 5th graders attend specials at the middle school actually opens up slots for our specials teachers at the elementary school to be offering specials to kindergarten. So that's something we've never been able to do before. So they would be experiencing that structured physical activity in PE and being introduced to art, music, and library throughout the week, which is something we've never been able to offer them.
So Mrs. Hopkins hit on a lot of the strengths here, and I'm here to talk about some of the challenges, but also offer some solutions. And as we sat back as a team, we began to realize that there's a lot of opportunities here to do some great things for our students. But the first one that we came to understand is just getting the 5th graders to the middle school to be part of that new 5th, 6th grade group. And just the idea of busing those 5th graders with those older kids was something that really gave us pause. So we kind of looked at 2 different areas. Number one, are we just completely off base here thinking that this could be something that we could even do? Is this been done before? And so we wanted to look at some districts that were around our area to see if anybody else was doing this. And currently, General McLean and Wattsburg, both right now, they do bus their K to 4 together and their 5th through 12th grade together on the same bus runs. The other school districts that we looked at, Corey, Union City, and Warren, do a little bit different. They actually bus K to 12 on the same bus run. So it's not something that's outside of the scope of possibility, as we see there's some districts around here that are currently do it. But more importantly, what we always like to do is we like to look at Fort LeBoeuf for Fort LeBoeuf. And if you guys know Bev Clark up at the bus garage and transportation and what they do, we're out there every day. Our principle is to see those students get off the bus and what the bus drivers do to make sure that those students feel comfortable, accepted, ready to go for the school day. They go out of their way for it, and that's something that I think will absolutely continue as we move forward. Another big piece of this puzzle, and that's thanks to Mr. Emmerich, Dr. Wolf from our school board, for looking at the current busing situation. As you know, for a while there, we were running short with bus drivers. Well, through an initiative here with our board and Dr. Wolfram and Mr. Emmerich, we were able to have a full fleet of bus drivers now moving forward as we enter the 25 and 26 school year. So that's a huge advantage for us, because one of the things that we're going to talk about later is the cost savings that we are going to have as a district if And again, I stress if we choose to go with this unification model. So thinking about the funds that would be going into a roof or the flooring or the paving or things along those lines, if we see that these bus runs are taking longer, we can also look at getting more bus drivers to maybe have a different bus route so there's less kids getting on, which in turn will decrease the time the kids are on the bus in order to make sure they're getting into the locations where they need to go. So that's kind of those opportunities that we're kind of talking about. The one thing that we also talked about and when we went back to is the fifth graders, as you know, because they're going to be going to the middle school with those sixth graders, the start time's an hour earlier. And that's something that we can't control. So this, again, is one of the main reasons why we felt that elementary schedule was such a vital component for this, for our kiddos. You know, as being a principal who was at the middle school, if you guys don't know, I was there for 8 years. Sixth grade is a struggle for those kids. There's just so many things that are new, from a schedule to a building to a time to lockers to just the overall, you know, it becomes overwhelming for these kids. And so for us to have the opportunity to eliminate one of those variables about allowing those kids to maintain that elementary feel for another year and actually pull back those sixth graders for another full year of elementary school. We know in life, society makes us grow up way too fast. So if we have that opportunity to have our students here at Fort LeBoeuf to have 7 years of that elementary feel, we think is really, really vital, and it's something that we want to do. Another big thing that we talked about was obviously with the split building, we have our 7th and 8th graders still on that block schedule. We'll have that elementary feel in there. That is going to add some difficulties that we recognize, but we also, again, look at the opportunities. As you heard Mr. Vaughn talk about, those 5th and 6th graders are going to have the opportunity to work with the special teachers that are currently in the middle school. So, you know, having family consumer science, having, you know, art with the art teacher, having phys ed. So they're going to get to know those teachers already. So when they make that transition, they're already experiencing some of the traffic patterns of the school and learning some of the students or some of the teachers that they're going to have as they, you know, have their whole career there in that building. You know, you heard the idea of the parent pick up and drop off with the initial phase, and that was a big, big concern. I think you can see from the logistics that we laid that out from a blueprint plan, and that was something that, you know, whenever we visited those larger elementary schools, that was a big thing that stood out to us, was how they divided, you know, bus drop off and parent pick off in literally opposite sides of the building. But from there, the challenge is the logistics. What does that look like from a personnel standpoint? Who's going to be covering that? Is it staggered drop-off and staggered pickup? And so those are the you know, the logistics that we need to work through in order to make sure that that's successful. As you heard Mrs. Rathburn talk about, special education population is not going down. You know, 30% of our population right now is that. So we need to make sure we have that flexibility. If we see the need for autistic support, life skills, emotional support, we need to have the opportunity and the facilities in order, if we need to hire those staff and move those staff in there to meet those needs of our students, we have the ability to do that. Sixth grade right now, as you know, is a content area. So that sixth grade teacher, this is a big thing that we talked about with that curriculum need, is they're now going to be able to have to teach math, science, and social studies, and that's not an easy task. So you'll see as this proposal goes through, this is not something, if we go that route that we're doing tomorrow, you know, this is a few years down the road, so it's going to give us time to really dive into our curriculum, see what those needs are going to be to make sure whenever and if we implement this, that curriculum's needs are met, and so that teacher is ready to go whenever they address those issues. And finally, for me, the last bullet points on this are everything that our elementary schools do all the time. The culture and climate, and you know, we got the PTO parents here from Robinson. We've got the PTO down at Waterford. We got the PTO at Mill Village. The events that we have at our elementary school are second to none. And I will also point out that the events that we have at the middle school are second to none. The idea of having the opportunity to combine those into one unified campus is something that gives us great, great pride, and I think it's something that can really benefit our kids as we move forward. And that was something we talked about as a team, and just thinking about all the great things. And I know it's different. I know it's different buildings, but you know what? We're a district about people. We're a district about students, and it doesn't matter where those people are. If we're together and doing those things, I think we got great opportunities to meet those needs of our kids as we move forward into the future. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Emmerich.
So what exactly, what estimates do we have for this revised proposal? And how does it measure up to the previous estimates that we've shared with you guys? The Unification Reset proposal has the same phases that we discussed before, but the one I want to start out with is the middle school renovation. It's interesting because we are working off estimates, and I want to point that out to you guys because I cannot forecast what the future is going to hold. I don't know what the cost of construction materials are going to be. We rely on our architect to make those forecasts for us and provide us with estimates. That said, our initial estimate for the middle school project was $12 million. The actual bid came in at $12.3 million. The reason why this is important is because it came in at $12.3 million is because we made a change. Our board saw a need for new bleachers at our high school, and if you've been here since those bleachers were installed, they are now handicapped accessible. They do have new rails, so folks who may have some mobility issues can get up into the bleachers. Before we didn't have that. And we also purchased a new curtain. For those of you who may have attended school here, we have occasion where we do separate the gym in two, and that curtain needed to be renovated. So that's the reason why we were off. So pretty confident in this particular estimate. Where the other ones go, I don't know that. But at least at this particular time, we have numbers that we can try to wrap our minds around. The middle school fifth grade addition with the gymnasium is estimated at $7.5 to $8 million. The new FLB elementary, 113,500 plus square feet. We are estimated at $300 per square foot for a total of just over $34 million for the new building. Baseball, softball renovations, Sean already pointed out that we have already with DuraEdge started the renovation of our baseball and softball fields. We have included that in that figure, but in considering a building or a storage area of a restroom, we have an estimate of about $350,000 for that. The bus garage estimated at $3 million, contingency $4 million, and stormwater management at $3 million. So the total preliminary estimate for the entire unification project is $64.7 million. So how does that stack up against the preliminary estimate that we came in previously with? That was $68.3 million. How does it measure up against the current estimate for a structural renovation? That is renovating our existing buildings, all inclusive, same things you see here, except for the renovation of our existing schools, $71.9 million. And then just a comparison in the last two bullets, $56.5 million estimate to renovate our elementary schools and a $34 million new facility for a 2025 estimate. Okay? So Sean also talked about cost savings a little earlier. We kind of want to dive into that a little bit deeper because it's important to emphasize that we are not looking to reduce instructional staff. This is not an intention of our board. It's not a recommendation that this administration team would be comfortable with. We have tons of research that supports smaller class sizes, particularly at the elementary level, and we have stood by that, and we've tried to promote that as best we can. We might have a little hiccup here or there where we might have a variation, but we do our best to stick within those numbers. But the estimated annual savings is $1.17 million. We have it broken down here. We are looking for staff reductions, potentially one principal, one school nurse, one nurse's aide, and 2 school police officers. In terms of custodial staff reductions, we do estimate 3.5 positions, 3.5 positions could be reduced there. Food service, 2 positions. Secretary aide reductions, 1 secretary, 1 office aide, 2 library aides, and 2 lunchroom supervisors. Reductions in utilities, supplies, and materials, estimated at about $76,000. And then we talked a little bit earlier about the gas and electric, natural gas and electric. That is estimated at about $94,500. The grand total, the last one there, elimination of a one-time server and tower we have at Mill Village in order to get our internet down there. We have a separate facility. We would be able to reduce that particular cost. So $1.163 million on those staff reductions. So to dive a little deeper into this, we have an organization that we bring in to help us with the bonds for these particular projects, and they provide us with the estimates. In other words, how much are we going to have to pay? How are those bonds going to be structured? What the interest rate is? All of those things are recommendations from PFM. They are a nationally recognized organization, tops in the state of Pennsylvania. So their numbers, their advisement to the board is what Bernadette Walters, our business manager, is going to share with you.
Thank you, Mr. Emmerich, and good evening. Now, as Mr. Emmerich has stated, we've been working very closely with PFM financial advisors, bringing them on soon after the unification conversation even began. During this time, we've had meetings and they've given several different presentations, usually lasting about 45 minutes. The last time they came in was at our July board meeting, and once again, giving a very thorough informational presentation. In the interest, though, of moving this meeting along, this slide is a summary of that 45-minute presentation. So you're welcome. You'll see here on this slide that we have a comparison of the two different options, the renovation of the elementary schools and Unification 2.0, as has been presented tonight. This table shows the estimated project costs, summarizing the numbers you've heard all throughout and that Mr. Emmerich has been stating, with the renovation being $71.9 million and the unification about $64.7 million. The current financing model, though, operates under several key assumptions that I have to point out. And that is, the first is that the borrowings will take place in a phased timeline, and they'll be scheduled to meet the anticipated construction needs. Financing the renovation will begin, the renovation has already begun with the start of our middle school renovation, with our borrowing starting October 2024. From this, there's 7 borrowings over a 10-year period, with the last being scheduled to go January 2035. The unification plan, though, has a much shorter timeline of 4.5 years and 6 borrowings, with the final borrowing being scheduled to be around April of 2029. All the calculations and illustrations are based on the current interest rate environment, and as the second column shows, the use of district cash is not in the finance calculation. When we're talking the estimated gross millage equivalent, we're talking about what's needed for the annual debt service payments, 3.49 millage equivalent for the renovation project and 3.10 for unification. Estimated annual indirect savings that Mr. Emmerich had just mentioned will be realized for the unification project alone, and that will be when the new elementary school opens around the 2029-2030 school year. The difference between the renovation and unification plans, net the savings, is circled in blue, and this is the difference of 1.29 mils. It's an important discussion point in the conversation and the decision that we have to make. But as this next slide shows, the district will look to smooth out the needed funds we need. We need to plan accordingly so that we can be prepared for either option. This illustrates what the district will need for the debt service payments over the next decade or so, using the formula and timeline provided by PFM. This is breaking it down into the millage equivalent that you've been hearing once again throughout the night, and highlights the difference of the two project options of $129 per $100,000 of assessed value. Now, this is where I need to remind you that this can be generated through a combination of revenue increases and/or expenditure decreases, which is why you see the language of local effort needed and not simply tax needs.
Next important point is the timeline that we're working on, whether our choice be, the board's decision be moving forward with renovation or whether it be moving forward with unification. Right now, we're in phase 1, and that began, as we discussed earlier, back in 2023 in January. And right now, the area in blue there is phase 2, and that is the middle school project. That is a phased project that is going on right now. Students will come back to school, and then in the summer of next year, 2026, we will pick that project up and complete it. Again, infrastructure renovation, HVAC, plumbing, electric, security, those things that you don't really see in the educational environment. Phase 3 is a combined phase, and that is the middle school 5th grade addition and the new K-4 elementary school. A couple of important bullet points here. The first is the Section 701, or it's also known as an Act 34 hearing. Every public school in the state of Pennsylvania is required to conduct a hearing before authorizing a project. So that hearing would take place in January. In the second bullet there, the board would then review and approve the administration to work with the architects and engineers to go out to bid. That would happen in February or March of 2026. The final architectural and engineering design would begin if the board does authorize us to go out to bid, and that would take place from February to August, September 2026. And at that point, we would go out to bid. And this is where I want to pause for a second, and I want to say this. Many times as I am out in our community, I hear some folks saying that this is a done deal. That is not true. The fact of the matter is we've been talking a lot about estimates. It is possible that if the board does decide to pursue unification or go out to bid for unification, and those bids come out extraordinarily high, they have the right, under the law, to reject any and all bids. And at that point, they can direct the administration to immediately turn course and begin examining a renovation of our elementary schools. That is how this process works. There is no final decision until the board approves those bids to proceed with construction. Okay, so I think that's an important point. Anyhow, the construction of the project, if it is approved, would be the fifth grade addition. The construction would take place in the fall of 2026 through August of 2028. And the construction of the K-4 elementary school would be April 27 through August of 29. The last bullet here is another important note for our community, and that is a Section 780 hearing, and that is anytime a public school in the state of Pennsylvania is needing to close a school or wishing to close a school, they must inform the public in a timely manner, advertise that hearing, and talk about the closure of those buildings if that is the direction that they choose. Finally, phase 4 is the maintenance of our bus garage and the renovation of our maintenance building as well. So to summarize our session today, unification is centered around the reducing costs of our taxpayer dollars, reducing the district operating budget, enhancing specialized services, and investing in improved facilities and infrastructure. I'm hoping as you reflect on our delivery and our presentation today that you see that we have at least addressed each one of those areas here. So there is a compelling why. You heard in my opening that I said this isn't just about buildings. It's not just about cutting costs. We have a proud tradition here at this district and within our community of putting our children first. And we've stuck to that, and we continue to do that to the best of our ability. And how do we do that? And we can do that through advancing a supportive environment for our kids and also enhancing educational opportunities. So how does this advance a supportive environment? Because the kids that we serve here are the most important piece to this puzzle in this work that we do in education. So in terms of safety and crisis response, this new building would have secure access points. There are opportunities for AI-enhanced surveillance in these schools and reinforced safe zones. A unified campus also allows us to respond to emergency situations a little more quickly, particularly since our SPOs would all be housed here on one campus. It also establishes consistent protocols and easier coordination with first responders, particularly if we have to reunify our children with our families. Centralized safety training is also important. We can streamline the safety protocols and practices from all of our buildings onto one site. It also opens up the door, the next bullet here, stronger community and student well-being. There is research out there that supports modern, well-maintained facilities, flexible facilities, promote community engagement and pride. It also, welcoming spaces strengthen peer and teacher relationships. And finally, a greater sense of belonging, which is an initiative that we've worked on here this past year and will continue into this year. We want our kids to be connected and link them to healthier behaviors, reduce violence, and improve our academic outcomes. So what about enhancing educational environments here at Fort LeBoeuf?
So the final area that we're talking about, well, how we feel this is going to benefit a kid is going to be with our educational opportunities. And we kind of broke those down into three main areas: modernized classroom environments, structured programs, and the allocation of our resources. When we talk about the modernized classroom environment, Dr. Wolfram in all of our meetings, he always points out that our job as educators is to make sure we're preparing our kids here at Fort LeBoeuf for their futures tomorrow. And one of the things that we truly feel with this unification is that with the modernized classroom and seeing those things, we heard of us talking about the STEM teacher and things along those lines, is that we're going to be able to bring that to our students. Also, we're looking at the new facilities with the new things that we could have in the classroom. One of the big things was the access to the physical education piece. You heard Christy mention those playgrounds and making sure that all of our students have access to those type of equipment. You know, the access to Carmen Benito Field, the soccer fields, the idea of the elementary school being with the middle school and the middle school with the high school and everybody on one campus. I think about what track and field is up here whenever I was a middle school principal, and Mr. Vaughn continues that. Can you imagine what that would be like with all of our kids here on one campus, or what a great event that would be for all of our PTO parents and moms and dads and everybody to get involved? So it's something that really, really excites us. One of the major things is obviously the standardization of programs. Right now, we know that our elementary schools and actually all of our buildings do fantastic when it comes to academic standards. But the times we actually get to meet are within Act 80, which is the in-service. So the idea of having all of our teachers under one roof in a K-4 building and that 5th and 6th grade team together where you can walk across the hallway, talk about what's working, what's not working, being able to maybe, whenever you're scheduling students, to put students that we know work well together with teachers that work well with them. All of those are opportunities that we have that just don't exist right now if we look at moving into that type of unification building. And finally, just a resource allocation, and you heard Christy talk about this, and it's something we think about, just the idea of having all the people where they need to be when they need to be there versus driving, transporting, and things like that. So when we look at those three things, those are the big three that we talk about. And again, with that coming together, that brings this group together, this community together of Fort LeBoeuf with the PTO and everything like that, just to do great things for our kids. And so that's something we're really, really excited about. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Emmerich.
I said in my opening that this entire process has been a tremendous learning experience for our administration team here. What began is an effort to support our taxpayers and look for reduced savings and operational costs has morphed into the possibility that if we decide to go this direction, that we could be stronger together here as a district. Now, keep in mind, we have enjoyed some tremendous success here at Fort LeBoeuf, and I've been a part of that for a long time, and so are the people that you have seen here. We can succeed and continue to succeed if the direction is renovation. However, based on the information that we have gathered, the research that we have done, the proposal that you saw tonight, we believe that there could be an opportunity for us to create a better situation for our kids, a better future, improve the safety, efficiency, and academic achievement here at Fort LeBoeuf. That does, however, require careful planning. It requires community input. Tonight is part of that process. That will continue as we further contemplate this decision, and ultimately, we'll find our way. We always do. That is how we have been here at Fort LeBoeuf for a long time, and I'm proud to be a part of that. And with that, I'm going to open it up for any questions, comments, feedback, anything that anybody would like to provide for the benefit of our conversation tonight. I do want to point out before we do that, though, that the QR code that we discussed earlier for the survey is up there. We do want to hear your feedback. We take that feedback seriously, and as I hope you saw tonight, it is shaping this plan and will continue to shape this plan moving forward. Doc, you got the mic.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
I just have a question, I guess, in terms of I'm maybe a little confused. It seems like in some sentences we're saying our enrollment, we're bursting at the seams in our current buildings, but then we're seeing declining enrollment. I guess I'm wondering what else has been looked at in terms of decreasing the deficit with our current buildings?
That's a great question. First, I think the confusion on bursting at the seams came when I believe Christy was talking about the space that we have for those instructors or those people that come in and support our kids, whether that be OT, PT, those type of things. They're currently working out of spaces that were previously locker rooms or small spaces that aren't really convenient or conducive to providing the services that those kids need. I think that's where some confusion might have developed.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like Robinson used to house preschool, right?
Right.
In the far hallway, which is now kindergarten, first grade. So like I know that we don't have classrooms, a ton of classrooms available there. There's none. But with declining enrollment, I guess I just would like to know what else has been looked at, because we're not going to be bursting at the seams based on what Dr. Wolfram had presented from PDE and the PA, I think, Department of Health.
Yeah, well, I guess to put this as bluntly as I can, 70% of our operating budget every year is salary and benefits. So that being said, the other option that the board could consider as enrollment declines, as Sean pointed out, would be the reduction in staff. That is not a recommendation of this administration, quite frankly. I see a future where we're going to need to add staff, maybe not necessarily classroom teachers, but people who are able to support our students in the areas of mental health, special education. Christy talked about those needs continuing to increase. So that in itself would be an option that the board could consider. And that is not one that they're willing to entertain. They would rather pursue what we're presenting tonight in order to try to reduce our costs as enrollment continues to decline. Okay?
Okay. I guess logically, though, if enrollment's declining, whether we have one building or not, you're going to have a reduction in staff, right? So I guess I just, besides reduction in staff in terms of building and other areas, has anything else been looked at? Or is that just the only option that we looked at, reduction in staff or new building?
Great. Okay, so maybe we'll try. I hope I'm not missing your. I feel badly because I hope I'm not trying
No,
to
I
skirt.
think maybe I'm not explaining what I'm.
No, it's okay.
I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
We have also looked at closing single elementary schools.
Okay.
It does not maximize the savings that you're seeing here today. For example, Mill Village, if that was a building that the board elected to close, those savings range between about $200,000 and $300,000 a year. What you're seeing here is maximizing the reduction in operational expenses into one unified plan. Does that help there?
Yeah.
Okay. The other side of this too is in terms of energy efficiency, for example. Every project that we do now is geared towards cutting our energy costs. The middle school project is going on right now. You saw the slide that we analyzed those energy costs. Those were cumulative, all the buildings, but the middle school does have some savings here that are benefiting from the energy upgrades that we're making at that building.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Hi, I just had a question too in
Sure.
terms of, you mentioned Mill Village.
Yes.
Did you guys take a look at, because Mill Village is one classroom teacher per grade level for an entire building. I don't know how many kids are in one class at Mill Village, 20 kids still is?
It would range. There's a variety of class sizes. Right now, Dr. Wolfram talked about, currently right now at Mill Village, I think we have 12, Dr. Wolfram, 14 students in kindergarten.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's very, very low enrollment at Mill Village. Did you look at closing or combining Mill Village with Waterford? Was that something that was looked at, and keeping Robinson? Because okay, so I grew up in a local district. I taught at a local district. When my husband and I bought our house, we decided to stay in this district because I heard such amazing things about Robinson Elementary. And I had a kindergartner this past year, my baby, my oldest, went to school, and I absolutely I was floored by the way Robinson, took care of my son and took care of me. Like, the family involvement was top notch. There are no bad things to say about Robinson Elementary. And the location from where we live is wonderful. It's a 3-4 minute drive for me to drop my son off at school. And I have the flexibility to do that. And even some working parents have the flexibility, to drop their kids off at Robinson because of the location. I mean, so close to Erie and everything like that. anyways, Robinson is amazing, and I wish there were more community members that were here tonight because, I mean, I talk to everybody and they have nothing bad to say about Robinson. And I'm sure that's Waterford Elementary too. I've been in Waterford Elementary, it's a great school. I've been in Mill Village, it's a great school. I mean, everybody's going to be sad that their school's closing. But why drop such a great school like Robinson when everything's going so well and just causing chaos for a while? I mean, there's so many things you still have to iron out, like the special schedule and trying to figure out, you know, seven classes at a recess time. Who's going to manage all those kids? And I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys have said you have to iron out. But I'm so partial to Robinson, and I love it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm against this proposal, and I see great benefits, and I do, but I don't know. Anyways, so I went on a tangent. Was it looked at to combine Mill Village and Waterford?
First of all, I want to say this. One of the most difficult things I have to do as the superintendent of this district and working with our board administration is to look at decisions that not only support kids, but also support our taxpayers. So I want to point that out to you. The other thing I want to say to you is that I have a personal connection to Robinson Elementary. My daughter is a product of that school, and I would absolutely concur with everything that you're saying. The truth of the matter is, though, is that as a superintendent, I believe that all the great things that are at Robinson, at Waterford, in Mill Village, given the successful endeavors that we've had, the committed staff that we have, can be translated over into a larger building. I know what you're saying. I really do. It's a special place.
There's no sense of like small community. At an elementary level, I just love the small community feel. I mean, it goes back to like one-room schoolhouses. You just let your little community, and this just opens it up so large.
Interestingly, though, okay, and again, I support everything that you're saying here because, like I said, my wife and I benefited from our daughter attending Robinson Elementary, and I'm so grateful at the experiences that she had there, the leadership of that building, the teachers that she had the opportunity and to be involved in class, and those are all great things that I will remember and she'll remember for the rest of her life. The reality of it is that school communities, we have one here at the middle school, we have a school community here at the high school, albeit they are older students, and I understand that, and I understand the progression of PTO involvement from the elementary to the middle school to the high school is very involved at the elementary level. Our thought is and based on everything I just said, is that can be transferred over into a larger building. Any research that you see out there, and these folks visited buildings with students who were 800 to 1,000 in the K-5 setting, okay? Sean, what we didn't mention is that their academic performance, just to kind of touch on that for a second, was equivalent to our school performance profile here. Okay, so these are buildings that are 800, 1,000 kids performing academically the same as we are here. And I would put our teachers down, our administrators down, next to anybody to continue that growth and achievement here at our district. So I hope that answers your question. Now, though, I didn't answer it. Part two is that you had asked if we had considered and talked about closing Mill Village. We felt that, again, monetarily, the best benefit for our taxpayers and for reducing our costs was an entire closure of all our buildings. There's a number of reasons for that. You saw a lot of the operational costs. The other side of this is an area that we still need to explore with our solicitor is the sale of those buildings and getting them back onto our tax rolls if this is the direction we want to go. But we did consider previously putting additions on Waterford Elementary, okay? Waterford Elementary, historical building, beautiful building, well-maintained. I can't thank our custodial staff enough. However, they are landlocked to be able to expand in terms of parking, in terms of, could we accommodate an additional 100 students? Maybe, but keep in mind, there's parking that goes along with that, the events that are going on already. You guys know at Robinson, I've attended the events there. The parking is difficult because of the number of parents that we have there when we have events. In this particular situation, we're expecting that same participation, but we've provided the parking and the space necessary to do that, as well as a larger venue to house larger groups of people. I hope I'm not just going off and, so thank you. I hope that helps.
I apologize for going off on a tangent.
That's okay.
But I had such a great experience with Robinson, and I have another one coming in. And
Sure.
it's gonna affect my kids. And I love my babies, and the idea of them coming to a large college-like campus situation at an elementary level just
It will
scares
not
me.
be a
And
college-like
I'm not 4
situation.
minutes down the road
Yeah.
anymore. So.
We have no interest in creating a university atmosphere at our elementary school. I can assure you that. I
Yes.
promise you that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess I have more of a comment in the mode of parent at Robison, educator that works for IU5, who works very closely in early intervention to transition to Robison or to Fort LeBoeuf families.
Sure.
Robison is very high when it comes to Robison and Fort LeBoeuf, I should say. All of Fort LeBoeuf is very high with the kindergarten transition. As an IU5 employee, I'm a speech therapist. I have all of the 3 to 5 kiddos that I help transition to Fort LeBoeuf. They are beyond districts. I work with several districts. They make sure each child is looked at individually. They go in and see all of the children. The school staff is very attentive to all of those incoming children on IEPs. I also have children who have come in on IEPs transitioning into school. So I feel like I have a pretty good perspective in multiple roles. Again, I work with other districts as well, very large, that have one elementary school. And I can tell you based on experience from several districts, they're not attentive. They don't come in and see all of the children in their preschool settings. They don't know the children individually, like the Robison staff and the Mill Village staff and the Waterford staff make sure that they know the incoming children. So my fear would be having such a large elementary school, you would lose that personal connection. Now I know we're still planning on bringing the 3 speech pathologists over. I know we would still have principals, you know, the psychologist, the OT, the PT, all of that. I just fear looking at the trend that my coworkers and I have based on some of those large elementary schools that those incoming kids would be lost. And that's a big fear. Like you said, the special education program is growing. Our numbers are growing. Our caseloads are growing. These children are not going anywhere, and you're going to get more incoming special education students. So that's a big fear to me, professionally and personally. And then another thought that I have is we live literally in the backyard of Robison, and my kids right now have a 40-minute bus drive. I choose to take them because I can right now. If I were to have to go, you know, to a 7:20 drop off in Waterford, I would not be able to do that. And I still think a 40-minute bus ride for a 7:20 start for a 5th grader is very early. So that would be another one of my major concerns. So just kind of some comments based on
No,
that.
I really do appreciate that. Obviously, we have a very close eye on early intervention. We've seen, as you discussed, those numbers increasing, the number of students that come to us already with established needs. That is something that we will never lose sight of, regardless if that's in our individual buildings or a larger unified setting. So that comes from the people, and obviously that's not something we intend to change. Our goal throughout this process, and again, it's been a long one and very difficult one for all of us, is not intending to tip down the nose of the plane here. It's actually quite the contrary. If we can find ways to improve and at the same time try to reduce our expenditures, we want to try to do that in a world with a very uncertain financial future, particularly when it comes to subsidies from the state and federal government. So I'm digressing there, but I appreciate your commentary and I do understand your points. So thank you.
Jenna and Yvonne and Brent, we had a question here. Just what were the names of the elementary schools you guys visited? Just the names. Hain Elementary, Mars Elementary, Montour Elementary. Thanks.
Hi, Mr. Emmerich.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You brought up a good point in regards to Waterford being landlocked.
Mhm.
When you take a look at the map of the high school, you can make the same argument that you're landlocked. When you look at Mill Village, there's acres. I think it's like 20-some acres. Robison, same situation, 20-some acres. If you truly are looking at being able to expand and to grow, wouldn't it make more sense to put that unified school at one of those other locations? Especially when you look at Summit as an example, where over half of your population is coming from that one area alone. So wouldn't it make more sense when you're adding these things for the community, more people would take advantage of it if they were in another location? Because we run into situation, I think as much as my daughter just graduated, as you know, there were periods of time where they couldn't flush the toilets because of the water issue at the school, the traffic situation coming in and out of Waterford. When you're bringing all those extra people in, is Waterford the right location for this school?
And that's a great question. And I guess where I'll start with, and I'll try to do my best to respond. If I missed anything, please tell me that I did. Central to this proposal is bringing all of our campuses, all of our schools onto one campus. And there's reasons for that. And we kind of touched on them here: crisis response, pooling our resources, all of those things you heard earlier. You talked about Waterford being landlocked. Of course, Mill Village is expansive, and there is a lot of property there, but in the spirit of equity, we tried to bring, not only for the unification proposal that we're doing, but bring everybody to a central location. If you can imagine, our Robinson families going down to Mill Village for a school, if we're going to build there, their travel times have now increased significantly. So we're trying to keep that central location in mind. Same with the Mill Village folks. If we kept the northern campus, it would be a very long travel for them. So we stuck here to where all of our other campuses currently exist. Does that help?
It does, but if you're moving all the people from Summit in, and you're moving all the people from Mill Village in, that's 3/4 of your population that have the commute. Where if you chose, maybe a 2-campus model on the 2 location on the far ends, now you're only moving, a third of the population.
And I don't want you to take this as me being coy. We certainly are already doing that at the middle school and high school. They chose at the time, and I'm not sure what the population dispersion was at that particular point, but they chose to build this high school here and the middle school here as a central location for the entire district, which covers 100+ square miles. So we already have experience in transporting our students to this central location. You might be surprised to know that some families who might be impacted at Robinson, if this does go through, might have almost a shorter or equivalent trip to come to the unified building as they would to go to Robinson. We already have some families that are traveling for special programs from the Robinson neighborhood boundaries to Mill Village to receive their education. So these are all things that, we want to consider, and we want to continue to hear the voices of our community. I guess I'm just trying to articulate the reason behind the central location is equity, fairness, and travel time. So that's what we did. Make sense?
Hi, Mr. Emmerich.
Hi, Brian.
First of all, I'd like to start off with, we appreciate everything that the district does and being cost conscious and wanting to try to save on utility bills. I suggest you could start tonight. Lower the temperature like that. I am freezing. This air conditioning is cranked up. So, we have to be able to save at least $10, I think, if you turn the temperature up to maybe 76.
Brian, I apologize to you on that. I cannot control that, but we did want to make sure the temperature, in case there were a lot of people, was comfortable in here.
Well,
So-
it's beyond comfortable. Oh, Mr. Schrump's comfortable, so. I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of comments. I have a ton of concerns. I don't want to hog the mic. I know Deb Church wants to speak.
Sure.
I do, and I may need the microphone back. So am I limited to one session? I think on prior occasions, in response to questions whether other models are being looked at, the response was, nothing is off the table. We're looking at everything. However, I've been following this proposal since, 2023 or whatever, online, Facebook, the district videos, sessions that the administration has put together. I've yet to see any other options other than 1 school or 3 schools. In fact, even tonight, that's all that's being proposed and talked about. Why don't we see a third column? Why aren't we seeing other potential? And I'm not suggesting that the district do this. So before, I don't know if Marvin's still here. I'm not saying we need to close one school over the other, but some of the benefits that I think I've seen tonight and some of the concerns, especially with special ed, I'll throw out there, I seem to think could be met on a cheaper basis. Do the expansion to the middle school. If you pulled the 5th grade into the middle school, you're going to open up all kinds of classroom space for the special needs rooms. And you have a 2-school model, a 2-school elementary model, one in the north, one in the south. And as Mr. Schrump has mentioned, 1/2, according to the last census, 1/2 of the population in this district resides in Summit. I have major concerns if there are any negative impacts between longer travel times, decreased enrollment. The parents might not be able to take their kids to the extracurricular activities. So, we're talking plays, we're talking pizza bingo, science fairs, book fairs, dance crew, all these things. Any negative impact is going to be felt. The brunt of that is primarily and mostly going to be taken on by Summit Township. And you're talking about fair and equitable. You are potentially negatively impacting half of your population in your district. I don't think that's fair and equitable. So those are some of my comments and concerns.
So, first of all, I want to reiterate, it's really cold in here. I'm shaking. So I agree with doing something to control the temperatures within the building. If this is like this just because we're here, then that doesn't make sense to me. Because from my understanding, and this is one of the things I want to touch upon, we had no knowledge of this meeting until by word of mouth. So I heard of the Save the Schools movement, but I have not received anything in the mail as a taxpayer. This is going to affect my grandchildren, not my children at this point, but I have concerns, and I've seen nothing on the news. So how exactly, first of all, are you letting the community, not just the people that have students at these schools, but the entire tax-paying community? This is a very small turnout, and I know this is not the first session. So with that being said, somewhere along the way, you're missing the boat in letting people know that this is happening. That's one. Two, I've heard comment about the travel times for special needs and special services. That is a small percentage, and it kind of goes along with what Brian just said. You are taking a small percentage of people that are being affected, and you're affecting a larger amount of people. So is there, going along with what Shannon said, a modified plan? Have you looked into, I like the sound of this, changes to the middle school, taking 5th grade and including 6th grade and keeping them at a more comfortable level before they start acting like middle schoolers or having to do that. But I am very, very concerned about busing. I do not want to see the education that the kindergarten kids get from the 12th grade kids, because you start out saying that's not going to happen, they're not going to be on the bus together, but then all of a sudden the most cost-effective way to get these kids to where they need to be is we have to change it and they're all going to be on the same bus now. That's a concern for me. My church, I used to attend St. Matthew's, had to combine with St. Cyprian's. We have a new building now. We all had to make adjustments to make that happen. So maybe the center of Waterford, where there's going to be a bottleneck, isn't the best place to create your utopia that you're talking about. Take into consideration changing the borders. I know that all of the communities feel very strongly about their elementary schools. In particular, I can think of one person who is in her 80s who loves Mill Village so much that when it's kind of like the Robison that we just heard. There's nothing better. The community's the best. It is the best place for those kids. We all have to make adjustments, so maybe change the borders and keep those schools open. I don't know. Next point, you're talking about having everyone on one campus for safety. Those kids that are at the elementary school are going to be affected if there is an issue here at the high school. You're going to be closing, you're going to have your fallout, and it's going to affect the entire campus if you have your campus all in one place. Those kids at the elementary school are not going to be shielded. They're going to be exposed to more as far as bomb threats, gun threats, whatever issues there are. It's going to affect the entire campus, not just one school now. So that's another concern that I have. I don't know, I've kind of rambled on and I apologize, but I am very passionate about this. As I said, it affects my grandkids, and I try to look at all sides, not just one side. I'm very attached to Robison, but to go along with that lack of communication, the reason that we were late tonight was because we thought this meeting was at Robison. So that's how little communication there is out there for the people that might be interested in having comments. I think I've rambled long enough.
No, you're fine.
That's a lot, Rick.
I'm passionate, sorry.
So, I've been disconnected from this also. I've known about it, and my personal opinion was it's kind of going down the road. I see a lot of reasons to do it. You guys did a nice presentation. There's a lot there. Monday, it's a young kid, graduate of Fort LeBoeuf. He went to Robison. He's on a job I'm on, and he says he's trying to buy a house in Summit Township, and he starts telling why. He says, we just researched. He says, we found where, no, to back up, like I say, I think this is going to happen, and there's, I'm concerned with busing and things too, but not enough to try to derail it or anything, you know what I mean? I see there's a lot of thought going into it, and I trust our board. We've got a great board, we've got a great administration, and what I'm going to get to here with this little bit of research I've done is all compliments to the Fort LeBoeuf School District, and I think you guys do a great job. Our kids are, we're all blessed to have this district. So to back up, to come forward again, this kid, he's talking about Robinson School, and he says, you know, Robinson School is ranked number 10th in the state. I said, what? I never heard that before. He says, yeah, it's number 10 in the state. I saw, so 2 days later, I talked to another person, 1 day later, next day, a very highly respected person in the LeBoeuf community, and we were talking about this going on, and I says, did you know Robinson was ranked number 10 in the state? She says, yeah, I knew that. I thought everybody knew that. So I didn't know that. So chew on that. I find out about this meeting yesterday, that there was one. And anyway, long and short of it, I find out about this meeting after work today, 3:30. I'm like, I'm going to look into this. Why would we mess with number 10 in the state? It's just kind of, and I'm on board with a lot of the ideas. So I started doing a little bit of, hour and a half of research I did, and I can't find number 10 in the state. I found number 83 in the state. Robinson is ranked, and this is a U.S. News and World Report, 2025 thing, non-scientific. I don't even know what it's based on. I'm just telling you, it gives you the enrollment, it gives you the ranking, and the rankings are based on a couple of things, but a lot of them are based on the standardized test scores. So I start paging down through this thing, and the schools that you guys went to are on it. But I just want to give you a couple of stats that I wrote down, and they're just, it gives me pause to think about it a little more. So this thing says Robinson School is ranked number 83 out of 3,214 elementary schools in Pennsylvania. Could be private, public. I'm not really sure what I was researching, but this is the number that it said was public. Could be, these could be off, but I think they get the general gist. 3,214 schools. Mill Village is number 171. Oh, Robinson has 381 kids. Mill Village has is number 171 with 113 kids. And Waterford Elementary is number 234 with 356 kids. That's a total of 850. And I based all my things on 850. And I see that you guys are down from that. If you take 6 grades divided by 850 kids, I end up with 141 per grade. But there's probably less in kindergarten than there is. But I kind of round this thing out to around 700 kids that are going to be coming. The 650, do you know how many 5th graders there are?
Do you know offhand, Sean?
It doesn't matter.
No,
I was just getting to, yeah, so we're into better than 700 as a number. 700, but I'll change my, I base it on 850, but during the thing I did a little bit of adjustment. So the first school over 850 kids is number 155. Every other school up to number 155 is under 850. The second school over 850 kids is number 275. Okay, so that's just a quick little number. Of the top 10 schools, 425 is the average enrollment. 10 to 20, 450. 21 to 30, 463. 31 to 40, 493. 51 to 59, 465. 51 to 60, 427. The average of the top 60 is 453 kids. Okay. Top 60, I mean, I couldn't really scroll that much further. So I went a little further, and I'm like, I'm just going to check some other things. Of the top 500 schools in Pennsylvania, 19 out of 500 are over 800. That's 3.8%. Of the top 500, 12 are over 850. So that's 2.4%. So of the top 150, or top 250, there's 1. That's 0.4%, or over 850 kids. And we were shooting for 850. I adjusted my numbers here. So of the top 60, 3 are over 700. That's 0.5%. Of the top 65 are over 650, because that was the number that was on the thing. That's 1%. And my only pause is in an administration of school districts that live on percentiles. That's a word that you guys live and die by. I mean, we used to get things that came to our house that said every one of my kids is obese. Yeah, every one of them, because they're out of the percentile.
So
every standardized score that we get, we grade everything in percentiles, and if we start taking the percentiles of the numbers of schools that are larger elementary schools, they're very small. And I did also do a test that as you go up the numbers, the percentiles become higher, because as you go closer to as you get out of the top, the larger schools are going to start creeping in there, because they're not, the top are all 453 kids, and as we creep towards the lower numbers of the percentages, you're going to get more bigger schools, and that I did that I did that just intuitively that should happen, and it did. It proved out, and so there's a couple of different reports like this, and I think I would be confident to say, take any of them and do this with them, and they're going to bear out the same numbers, that the big schools don't mean better scores. And I cannot debate, because I don't have the time to do it. And none of us want it to debate every one of the points, but I think that, listen, the Fort LeBoeuf School District is blessed with great parents. And one of the key reasons we are so successful is because our parents care. The kids come home and they do their homework. There's nothing saying that that's going to change in a big building. I mean, we would hope that you would still be engaged with your kids as much, and the parents are what makes our buildings make our kids, because they're there, and our teachers. We got some of the best teachers. Robinson School, I'm a product of that, and all my kids, and I'm so proud of Robinson School and the way it is run. I pause to think that it's a good idea to get rid of that. But I see the obstacles. I'm not blind. I see them, and I see what you guys are trying to do. As you move forward, if someone would maybe take a look at those numbers, and I challenge someone to find a study that conflicts with what I'm saying, that the numbers, because I think I heard you say, Rick, that it bears out that they're better. What I see, and in fact, the 3 schools that you went to, it does not bear out. Those numbers, according to this report and according to the other report I scanned, and this was just, like I say, an hour and a half's worth of, and if we can, as a group, if we can acknowledge that there's some savings to be had by doing this thing, we also, I hope, as a group could agree, and you've even said it's not all about savings, and you're not pushing for this thing. These are options, and you're doing your job, giving us options, and I thank you for the meeting, and I thank you for the time that was put into it. And stage 1 and stage 2, I see it. I see it. It's right in front of our eyes. I've been in the seat that this school board is sitting, not in that exact seat, but I've been in that seat, and I know what you're doing, and I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me. But
Thanks, Tom.
The numbers, they do tell a story. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi.
Hi.
My grandkids are a 3rd generation coming to the Fort LeBoeuf School District. And right now, my concern is one of a very fundamental one. I know personally, even though I'm a Summit resident, that 3 times at least that I am aware of in the last year, the schools had a problem with water, that there was no water available for flushing toilets, for in the cafeterias, for anything in the schools. I also know, because my mother was on the water authority in Waterford for a long time, that the entire town of Waterford is fueled by one well. Now, any of you that have ever been on a well, although it's a very good well and it's done very well for a long time, the fact that they've had issues 3 times this year of no water in the schools is a very big concern for me. What happens when you bring even more students in there? Water's a necessity. You have to have that. What provision have you found out for taking care of this problem? I mean, you got a tank right out there. It shouldn't even be an issue. But that it's happened 3 times in 1 year is a big concern.
Thank you. So let me try to address that question for you. I am not aware of any water shortage supply here in our community. However, as we go through to meet any type of regulations, regardless of the direction we go, there's responsibilities on our behalf to make sure that we're able to get enough water in here. The water shortages that you're mentioning here, or the interruptions in water service, were due to malfunctions in either lines or the supply here. to our buildings. It wasn't anything dealing that I know of from a well that was going dry. I've never heard that before at all. But I can tell you, we will do our due diligence. Our engineers, as we continue forward, will examine that. The last thing we want is to further contemplate construction on a building that doesn't have enough water supply. And we'd be required, when we submit our plans to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, that those needs are met. Okay?
I don't have kids at Robinson yet,
Okay.
so I'm going to leave the emotional stories to other people. I don't have them yet. I'm going to switch to finance. That's my wheelhouse. I just have a couple questions. Is the bond repayment schedule front-loaded or back-loaded?
Sure.
Yeah, I can. What's the repayment schedule for those? Are they going to be like 10-year, 30-year? Okay. I would be interested, just a little bit of a pushback on the slide that you presented specifically. I would be interested to see what the actual current interest rate they used to come up with those projections. I would really like to see that. I would also like to see a sensitivity study done of what happens to the tax burden or the millage rate if that interest rate should fluctuate by 1%. That would be really important to know. I think that that's important for the taxpayers to know and the community to know. So I'm going to just push back on that a little bit and look for some more transparency on that. The second thing is, in the last presentation, I guess the one that started in 2023 was presented early in 2024. It was stated that the district planned to use up to 17 million of the reserves to help fund this plan. Is that still on the table as well?
You said in one of the presentations we were using part of the 17 million.
Yeah. How much of it, and is that still part of the funding plan?
Okay, the funding plan itself is determined by our board of directors. If they so choose, they do have money in the fund balance they can contribute to offset the millage equivalent necessary to fund the project, yes.
How much would they be able to draw down? What would do to the liquidity position? What type of financial?
It would be a decision that they would have to make as they draw closer to the bids and the funding of the project.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to caution the school and the board against looking at this funding-wise through rose-colored glasses. I would also like to point out that what I prepped for this meeting was based on last year's presentation. I understand
Sure.
that some of it has changed, but I didn't see anything in this new presentation as well. But it provided little to no detail on transition-related expenses. It was really just construction. I'm talking additional training, overtime pay, moving expenses, things like that. That sort of overhead was not included. So I would be interested to see what happens to the forecasted funding needs when you include those sorts of overhead. And I also did hear a lot tonight about, if bus routes, we have savings, let's spend more. You're cutting into those savings and then kind of eliminating the whole point of this. So I would just caution against that. And, I reviewed a literature study that looked at surveys from 2007 to 2018, and it found while consolidation brings the district level economies and those back office type savings, most districts still experience higher per pupil costs in the first 5 to 10 years post consolidation based on those capital and transition-related expenses. So I would be interested to see what the board would have to say as a response to that. And then the only other thing that I would like to bring up as well, sorry, I'm a researcher. I have 4
okay.
pages of notes here, so I'm sorry.
No, we appreciate your feedback.
On the bus routes, my husband and I, we just built a house up in Summit, mostly because we bought land in 2020 because of Robinson. So I would like to talk about the bus route, and, in the FAQ page that was published last year, it was showing up to 40-minute bus rides for elementary students, especially those on the outskirts.
That was the maximum that we were
That was
hoping
maximum.
to shoot for? Yes.
Yeah.
That was based on our transportation department supervisor using the software that we have here to calculate those routes, and that was the estimate that we came up with. We want to keep our students on the buses short amount of time as we can. So you had mentioned the cost savings earlier, taking part of that to contribute towards hitting that mark. That is what we were referring to there.
So I guess what research shows you that 40-minute bus rides are developmentally appropriate for young children? When the National Sleep Foundation showed that elementary children can lose up to 2.6 minutes of sleep per minute of passive commuting to school. And kids that age still need 9 to 11 hours of sleep. How does that make sense?
Okay.
I would just really caution that. You're alienating a lot of the outskirts and putting them in a tough position of potentially very long bus rides for very, very young kids.
Okay, in terms of, we have not looked at any research regarding what you just described. However, now that you've mentioned it, we will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I promise I'll be quick. I just thought of a couple quick things. Well, first of all, our district is outstanding. A lot of us here, myself included, I'm a product of this district. And when I came through, we did not have, I'm not saying it was a horrible district, we did not have the academic reputation that we do now. And I think that's in large part due to our administration, our central administration, as well as our building principal administrators. But we have that reputation. People want to move into our district. Other districts in Erie County look at us. We are the envy. I mean, we are the model that everyone should shoot for. So when I see the consideration, and I know the statements have been made, this isn't just financial, but when I look at our score, our kids are tops. Our schools are ranked in the top, and our scores are tops. We don't need to do this. We're not in crisis. Our elementary schools are not in crisis. We don't need to shake things up to be the best. We're the best. So I just have a hard time with, like, why are we doing this if it's not just, if it's not to make education better. I just don't see it. I know there were some slides where there were some potential positive things that would help, but I think we're doing that already. So like, my one question is, well, no, I have more than one question, but unified curricula and instructional practices was one of the potential benefits. Aren't we already unified? Do you mean we have different curricula in each elementary school? Well, we have email, we have telephones, and we have communications. A teacher approaching someone else in the hallway, I don't think is going to happen when you're walking your elementary kids to recess, or you're walking them to the lunchroom. You're not going to stop and collaborate with a teacher. But I think the district already has stuff set up. I mean, I believe we have department heads, correct?
We do.
Who are teachers that kind of run, say, math, third grade math department head. They collaborate with the third grade math teachers, not only in their school, but in the other elementary schools. And then they go back and they collaborate with Dr. Wolfram. And Dr. Wolfram doesn't do everything that they say or want, but he takes their input into consideration.
He does nothing that they want, Brian.
No, but I'm saying, but he collaborates and he takes their input. So I think that's already set up. I mean, we have the in-service days that are completely dedicated to encouraging communication and collaboration with teachers. I had some. What else do we do? Oh, pacing. We have pacing, right? The teachers follow pacing. This is all to keep us all consistent and current. And I think the district is doing a great job, right? You're doing it now. I don't know that. How can you improve on when we're already in the top, I guess? Well, possible. I guess if you can think it, it could happen. I guess, but we could maybe agree to disagree. I think we're collaborating now. I don't think we need to encourage that. And then one more thing, and I'll pass the mic. Has the district thought of, well, there are potential cost savings. And I think early on, just as a small aside, information coming from slideshows or prior video presentations, we were estimated to save $2.3 million a year. And then we are estimated to save over $2 million a year. I see the slide tonight we're down to 1.1. I mean, is it fair to say we don't really have a great grasp or a handle? How much are we going to save? I mean, that number has gone down drastically. And then I guess a question is, specifically though, the busing. 20 to 25% at times of the students at Robinson Elementary, I believe, are parent drop-off and pickup. It's a lot easier, I think, for parents that live in Summit to drop off and pick up at Robinson. And I think one of the parents tonight had mentioned she may not be able to drop off at Waterford. So if there is a significant increase in students that are now being bused as opposed to parent drop-off, does that not, does the district need to purchase more buses? Does the district need to hire more bus drivers? Are there going to be more fuel costs? Are these, because that would, and we don't know if that's the case or not, but if that's the case, that will certainly cut into the annual savings, I assume.
Yeah, let me address the first part of your question, Brian. The initial savings proposal that the district calculated was done by myself, Dr. Wolfram, and Bernadette. That is prior to us contracting out with PFM to help us through that. At the time, we were estimating sale of the building property in those savings, and they advised us not to do that. That is why that dropped significantly during that time. It wasn't a lack of understanding of what we were trying to save. It was we included something in those estimates that they felt was not appropriate based on their expertise. And I still to this day cannot tell you if we get that far what those buildings would sell. That is not in my wheelhouse. Those are things that we would have to work with our solicitor and people who are in that realm, because there is not only the upfront revenue that we would receive in the sale, but there's the ongoing revenue from the tax, bringing them back onto our tax rolls. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just want to commend you all and thank you for taking the time. I know these are difficult conversations. It's very tough to try to lay everything out in a way that's all palatable in ways that we can receive it. You guys have done a lot of the research, and I appreciate all the groundwork you guys have laid for this. One of the things that I just wanted to kind of ask about was there a consulting firm at all hired through this process that you guys worked with, or this was all kind of research led by the board and your supervision? one of the things I notice is that obviously it's a national trend with enrollment going down because of demographics going down. More and more families are having less children, leading to less children going to school. That's a national average of education, across the board, not just our district specifically or Erie County.
Sure.
One of the things that I noticed with the projection for enrollment over the next 10, 15 years, and I do want to mention, by the way, our family, we live in Summit. We have 4 children, young children. The oldest will be in first grade at Robinson next year, and then kindergarten, and then followed by another one in kindergarten the year after, and then the other one's 2 right now. So we do have a very vested interest in this as parents, but I think also as residents of Summit, very vested in terms of the community and what we want to see. So I'm trying to wear both hats as a parent, but then also as a resident of the community.
Sure.
But one of the things that I was noticing with the projected enrollment is that if half of the population is in Summit and you're looking at enrollment numbers for the school, there wasn't ever a factor associated with a potential decrease if you do move it to a centralized location. A lot of the comments and conversations that I'm hearing from parents and people tonight is that they don't feel comfortable sending their kid to a campus school, like the model proposed in the Unification. If that's the case, there's going to be parents who are going to opt not to send their kids to this school. So there was no factor really associated with a projected enrollment based on the school now being located centralized, especially with opportunities like school choice that the governor's legislation is trying to move forward to, similar to like Ohio. There's a lot of private schools options that are going to be within probably closer proximity to Summit residents versus Waterford. So that's going to be a difficult thing. In the big, beautiful bill, there's a federal tax credit program. That's going to allow more private schools to be able to offer financial aid opportunities for residents of Summit specifically if they're looking for other options. I know for us, it was a really difficult conversation that we had about public education just in general. We found a home at Robinson. We love the community. We had a tremendous experience. Robinson was an amazing family atmosphere. If we now are picturing sending our 4 children to a school that we feel more like a campus, we'd probably be more inclined to look more the homeschool route or private education. So we're one family right there, and all the people I'm hearing talk about this are not agreeing with the unification. Most parents have concern about this due to a lot of the issues that are brought up. So I do want to just advise and kind of mention that you might need to factor in a loss of percentage of families that are going to send their kids to this school. Because right now, this is a projected enrollment with how the demographics are going, but I do think there's going to be an impact percentage based on this unification process. So those are just some of the comments and things that I wanted to kind of advise on and just kind of hear out. Obviously, you guys have done your research. There's a lot of benefits to the taxpayer in regards to the amount of the millage that you went over. But I think as you look at a whole to serve a community, it's a very difficult decision. I appreciate all the research and effort. And obviously, as educators, you guys all care tremendously about the children and the community. But that's just one point that I wanted to make about, the school choice that's being tossed around at the governor's office now, the federal tax credit program. Those private schools are going to get more and more of our students from Summit specifically due to those factors. So.
Yeah, I guess you brought up a lot of issues that are concerning to us, and all have financial implications. School choice is certainly a challenge that could adversely impact us. It's already going on with our cyber schools. However, interestingly enough, it doesn't really impact our enrollment here. So our families choose Fort LeBoeuf for the reasons you just described. We are effective at what we do, and we do the best we can to try to educate our children here, and we've shown successes.
I just want to point out, you just said exactly that. People choose Fort LeBoeuf for the product you provide. You're
That's right.
changing your product in 6 years.
That was the next part of my comment, is that we're not changing the product. We're changing how we would deliver the product.
But everybody here's product is not just the education, and that's the value that the schools provide.
And that is well understood. And
Yeah.
we obviously spent a lot of time contemplating that when we looked at this as being a proposal, is how is it going to impact the culture of the building? The truth of the matter is, and I've said this to this administration team and our board even at one point, is that the team that we have here could teach in grass huts if we had to do that. That's the kind of people we are. That's what we do as educators. But at the end of the day, I'm faced with a very difficult decision professionally and personally, as I have to be able to advocate for, because just as you say these things to me, I get the same phone calls from taxpayers who tell me I want my taxes reduced.
Of course.
And so I will always value and love education and the results that we produce here. At the same time, I'm torn with an obligation of trying to do it as financially conscientiously as we can. And so this decision is difficult no matter what angle you come at it. At the end, Brian, you had said earlier, nothing is off the table. And that is still remaining true. Everything that you guys are saying here are going to be part of our report back to the board. That's why we're holding these sessions. These aren't hearings. These are not obligations by us. It's us trying to make sure that we bring enough back to our board of directors, because they too hear differing perspectives, just like you're saying. Some may say, why would you do this to these buildings? You're being so successful. And others will say, I'm on a fixed income. I want my taxes to go down. And this is where we do what we do as education, is take that into consideration and still provide the product that we provide. And I think we've continued to do that year after year after year. We're the third lowest millage rate in Erie County. If you were to plop your house out here and take it out to another school district, I will not mention any names for fear of throwing anybody under the bus, but your taxes are going up immediately, unless it's Union City or Northwestern. If you choose to move there, they're the only ones that have a lower millage rate than we do. Now, the benefit to that is that we're doing an affordable service to our community, and one that we love and will continue to do. I didn't mean to ramble on there.
No, thank you for the time.
Struck
Appreciate
some
it.
chords, and I agree with you.
Hello.
Hi.
I do want to piggyback on the reduction in enrollment. I feel that because we've been kind of everywhere. We were at St. Luke's, then we were at Robinson, then we were at the middle school. And that's when it changed. The big school overwhelmed my daughter tremendously. And unfortunately, the school district could not react quick enough. And she missed so much school that I pulled her out. And I said, you're going to do cyber school. And I did not choose Fort LeBoeuf because she had such a bad experience at the middle school. And I have not been happier with the choice that I made. So yes, I do think that's going to happen. You know, as the years go on, the cyber schools are going to become more efficient, become more effective. And when you put, you know, my kid can get up at 8 o'clock and roll onto her computer, or she can get up at 6 o'clock and have to be on the bus at 6:30. Actually, I think the bus at my house picks those kids up at 6:05. Guess what we're going to choose? You know, if the education is still high quality, I'm going to choose the more efficient route. So yes, I do think that there's going to be a reduction in enrollment, and I don't think it's fair to Summit at all. You know, because like you said, 50% of your enrollment comes from Summit. So again, the bus driver thing. Yeah, you guys said that you hired a full staff this year. That's great. That's this year. That changes every year. You may not have that every year, so then you are going to have these kids riding on buses with the older kids. And, you know, you talked about the support having to travel. Well, how about instead of putting the money towards a bigger, better school, you put it into the support and you supply each building with the support that's needed. And I'm concerned about my property value. You know, Summit is sought after, right? It's hard to find a house in Summit sometimes. And I think it's because of that elementary school. That's one reason that people are going to look at a neighborhood and say, wait, my kid has to go how far for school? No way. You know, so even if I'm not using the school district, my property value is going to go down. And again, not fair. You talked about a community center in the school. I mean, I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but I don't see how that would work. I mean, you can't really even step foot into a school without a litany of clearances, which is the way it should be. So how would that ever work, that you're going to have the community be able to use a space in a school? And yeah, scheduling and this and that, like that's got to be a scheduling nightmare. Like you would have to make sure that there's not a single student in this building. And so that I don't think is feasible. And my question is, what's the plans for Robinson Elementary building if you go forward with this?
Obviously, that would be a discussion that our board would have to have with our solicitor. The ideal circumstance would be to sell the building and get it back onto our tax rolls. And that is where we would be with that, with all of our buildings, if they decided to close them.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm gonna make this real quick. So I work Lower East Side. A lot of Erie residents, they know where I live. They know I have rentals. A lot of these guys that have young kids are asking me, hey, have you seen anything up for rent? Hey, have you seen anything up for sale? Because they know about Robinson Elementary. They're not interested in Fort LeBoeuf. They're not interested in Mill Village. They're interested in Robinson Elementary. I'm lucky enough to have 2 rentals right next to my house, okay? I have those rented to kids that go to Robinson Elementary. Now the one child's going to the middle school, but initially they came to me as when I put up for rent because they wanted their children to go to Robinson Elementary. Now, is that going to be the same case if now they have to get on a bus and drive to Waterford? I really highly doubt that. And I know, Tom, you have many rentals in Summit. I don't know if you have the same ability with children, but that is a big, big concern. Yeah, my tax dollars are probably going to get screwed up because of this. You're going to have to increase the taxes for building that new building, or you're going to have to increase our taxes to renovate the building. Me as a Summit resident, I'd rather see my taxes going up to renovate a building that's going to help me. Yes, I'm being, greedy, but I bought the house where I'm at, and she will say it too. She built her house where she built it to be in a Robinson Elementary School area, not to be bused 40 minutes. All right, that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say one more thing about the lack of community involvement here tonight. I was really thinking I would see a lot more people. I wouldn't have known about this if it wasn't for me already being on the Fort LeBoeuf email list. I'm a parent in the district, but all these new parents, and I'm thinking about families in particular that live across the street from me in a neighborhood who have young kids who, moved in because of Robinson. I've talked to because they're like, yes, we're in this Robinson is amazing. How was it advertised to them? Did you have anything on the news, or did you send out letters about this particular meeting?
Yes.
You did.
The first step of this is there was an article in the Erie Times on July 18th by Val Myers.
Okay.
That was the initial community outreach regarding this. Secondly, we do a lot of our communications via social media. Our high school Facebook page, our buildings advertised it on their social media outlets as well. And then we have a product that does like an all call to our parents, in which we can not only call them, but we send out emails with the letter informing them of this meeting tonight. And it's important that you bring that up too, because in the end, we have an obligation not just to communicate with the families that are here, but also the residents and the taxpayers in which it's going to be impacted. As we move forward, there will be mailings that have the detailed plan out to every resident in our community, and that would happen prior to the hearing dates that you saw scheduled on the timeline earlier tonight. I hope folks aren't thinking that this was an attempt on the district's behalf. This fly has been hanging out with me all night. I think he's
Shoe
reading
fly, as my son
yeah,
says.
he's reading my presentation. Anyhow, I think that I don't want people to think that this is an attempt on the district's behalf to be less than transparent, because that's not the case. We're trying to get as much information out. We really do read the surveys that you guys put in. This is recorded. Sean and I will go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we'll share this information with the board. We had somebody, you asked earlier about we can share with you the entire financing plan that PFM presented to our board of directors. This is not to be a less than transparent circumstance here. So all these things, we're trying to be open in trying to get communications out. It is very costly, and it's challenging for us to do mailings, but it's not something we're against. We just want to make sure the timing of it is sharing where we're at with this plan when we get a little closer to a final decision on it.
Right. And I totally appreciate, I mean, you guys are wonderful people. This is, like I said, my first year in the district, and, well, I lived in the district prior to having kids, but my first year having a
Sure.
kid in this district. And, I mean, it's just wonderful, and I'm very happy here, and I just don't want to mess with my happy, obviously, but that's me being selfish. But I appreciate all of you. You guys have done a phenomenal job. I mean, there are several points of this that I'm like, oh, yeah, that would help. But I just would hate for us, this little tiny group of people, to be like, oh, well, there were just a few here, so obviously the community is in support of it. I just feel like there's not enough community communication right now. I feel like we need a little bit more, because I don't feel like just our little group of people here is going to make much difference to the decision. So
Understood.
did you
To reiterate a point I made earlier, because I think it's important to say, is that, obviously every year we go through a budgetary process here at the district, and for many, many years, we have heard, requests for us to examine our level of staff. And what we're finding, and I'm being altruistic, and for anybody who's in the room and it's in education here, the needs of our kids are escalating. And whether that's instructional support in the classroom or support for mental health, this equals an additional financial commitment on the district's behalf in order to meet those needs. So what you're seeing today is born out of that discussion. I cannot see a future as a superintendent of this district reducing staff. It's a misstep. So at the same time, how do I present that to a board of directors when we're sometimes looking at a deficit in our budget? And that's really where this whole conversation was born from. It's not our administration team wringing our hands together thinking of a way to upset some of the successes we've had throughout our entire careers together. And there's a lot of people here tonight, and even people on this team, that have spent their entire lives here. Their education was received here. We understand the magnitude of this decision. And with that, are there any other questions tonight? Yes.
Just the last thing I'll say,
No,
I know you
good.
said you're going to review, is if possible, if there's any way, you mentioned the research was done in terms of a north-south model of having 2 elementary schools versus.
When I say research, what I mean is we contemplated those ideas, yes.
Okay.
But we did not do the extent that you see here tonight.
Yeah, and I know somebody mentioned earlier having a third column of maybe that's an
was
option
Brian,
as well.
yes.
Just in terms of feedback, I think the community, in terms of as we get to the point where this is board hearing level, would probably really value being able to see 3 models. Because as I mentioned earlier when I was talking, the feedback from everybody is Robinson is a great school, just like everybody would claim on the other side of town or the other side of the county, their school is the best too. I think just losing that sort of sense of school community is so important that just kind of feedback in terms of saying it would be great to see the research conducted at the same level as the unification versus renovation in terms of just 2 campuses. So,
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. That's all right. Sure. That would be August of 2030. And the one piece on there, and we've thought about this, is, when do we transition our 5th graders up to the middle school if this goes through? And there's 2 options there. One, we could do it a year in advance to try to avoid a massive transition of kids, or do it all at the same time during that same month, which would mean after the construction of those rooms are done at the middle school, they would sit vacant until we decide to make the occupation. And the reason is mobilization of that many construction projects at once is just a challenge. But go ahead. I can't say that we put a specific plan in talking about the potential increase in mental health concerns or things along those lines as they relate to specifically to the transition. I can tell you that our team has several avenues in which we are able to discover and uncover any concerns that are going on with our kids, and we do our best to respond to those. That's an interesting question, and I don't have an answer in terms of what we've done so far, but it's certainly something we can look at as a team, for sure. Mm-hmm. True. Yes. Thank you. I will say research that we have done previous to the unification was based on class size. Kids, regardless of the size of the building, it's the class sizes that matter most in terms of how they succeed academically. So that is why you see here at our district that we continue to support those at K-2 and 3-5. In terms of mental health, we have not done any research on unification and the impacts on mental health, but we will now.
Okay, I just have a couple more things.
Sure.
I hope you all are taking the day off tomorrow because these last 3 days have probably been exhausting for all of you working and then coming here. So I really appreciate, I know everyone here appreciates the fact that you're still here and haven't cut us off from saying our piece because that really means a lot. So thank you. Question. Is this new proposed elementary school 1 story, 2 stories? What is it going to look like?
It would be, right now, the proposal that we have is a 2-story building. And the reasons behind that is, number one, it's cheaper to build a 2-story
Sure.
building. You saw
and you don't
the
have the space for it either. Like, right? Like, in terms of footprint, right? Like, it's easier
Correct.
to go up.
Correct. The footprint, we even contemplated in the initial proposal a 2-story building here, too. And there are other examples of 2-story buildings right here in our area. I think Erie School District has Edison. I think their proposal is a 2-story. I believe in Harbor Creek, we have Rolling Ridge is a 2-story. So it's not uncommon. The unique thing about this building that you might notice, because what we hear a lot about is how do kids get off the 2nd floor. There is egress because of where that building is located, right onto Carmen Benito from the 2nd floor of that building. And again, these are conceptual designs, not the actual architectural prints. So wider hallways, elevators already would be built into the plan, wider stairwells, all things that are safety-based, ability to secure and lock down specific areas of the building. These are all things that go into the future design of the building.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. 2-story buildings are a school nurse's worst nightmare, though, FYI. Just throwing that out there.
Gotcha.
I've worked at 2-story buildings as a school nurse. It's not fun.
Stairs are a nightmare for me, too.
I know that with this proposal, you've talked about class size won't change, but I wanted just to I don't know, make a comment on, it's actually in the Florida legislature. It's 235.2157, in case you're wondering.
Mm-hmm.
It's known as the small school requirement, that any new elementary school building must not house more than 500 students. And that came from their research and their findings because they had not the best academic standards there prior to, because they had such large buildings. So not only did they legislate it to pare down their building sizes, but their class sizes as well. But they found better academic and social outcomes, improved school culture and safety, stronger parental and community connection, which, and I know that that was mentioned over there, the hope would be we have such a great district and we have such involved parents that the hope isn't that you lose that, right, by bringing it to one building out here. I will say, this has been brought up, for Summit parents, if you work till 5 and an event happens at 5, it's a whole lot easier to get to Summit than it is to get out here if you're working late or whatever, but that's besides the point. I guess to go along with the academic performance of the schools that Mr. Church mentioned and the number 423 or 433, whatever it was, that par with the less than 500 that Florida legislature has put in place. Now, they're the only state that has actually legislated that. No other states, from what I can find, have legislated. But I think there's something to be said for that when looking at other options for looking at our deficit, like this deficit, all of this, the finances. I appreciate and know, like, there are things need to change, things need to happen. I guess kind of going back to my first point, I really would like to see more. I want to see another plan. It's like we were, I don't know, it's like you go to the restaurant and they say, well, you can have salad or you can have, steak. You get no other options. If you want anything else, too bad. Like, this is what we have to offer you. I guess I would like to see some more of this. Like, you put together such a detailed presentation, and I appreciate that as a taxpayer, as a parent. Fort LeBoeuf, I have a fifth grader at Robinson. I have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old. My mom was here. My grandmother was the librarian at Waterford. Like, we are steeped deep in this community. And I built my house for Fort LeBoeuf and for Robinson in particular, where I did, because I wanted my kids to be a part of this school too. So we have a great school, and that's kudos to all of you and everything that you've done. I just would like to see, I just feel like it's kind of, and nothing again, not to say that you're doing this, it feels like it's being shoved down our throats. This is the option. It doesn't feel like you've looked at anything else. And if you have, great. I just maybe communicate it more, or communicate what you've looked at or how it plays out in terms of the money. It feels very much like this is it. There's no other options. It doesn't feel like everything is on the table.
Okay. As I said earlier, this particular plan that you see here is to maximize the impact on our millage rate here at the district. So that's why you see it there. We did look at Mill Village. That was a $200,000 to $300,000 return on that. If I'm making you guys feel that there is no other option on the table, that's not true. I don't know where the end of this is going to take us. I regret that maybe we haven't communicated that, as Deb pointed out, and some other folks have said here tonight, through written communications to our taxpayers. We have just traditionally gone away from mailing and getting on the social media, and we've seen a lot of return in that option. So we are going to continue to go back and look what you guys are saying to us tonight and review that. That's what we do. You're welcome. Yeah, he's got a booming voice, Sean. that, yeah.
I guess all I wanted to say, this isn't going to take long, Sean, is the reason I'm here is I can see both sides, and I actually see a lot of good things with this. I question just the scores, but as a taxpayer, I appreciate the work that the board and Rick and your team has done controlling the millage rate. As a alumni of Fort LeBoeuf, as a parent of Fort LeBoeuf kids that have all graduated, as a grandparent of Fort LeBoeuf kids that are coming up, as much as I would defend the Fort LeBoeuf School District in what you guys have done, what you continue to do, I feel that I need to be here defending the Robinson school teachers and what they've built there, including like Brenda here. They do a tremendous job. So I guess that's why I'm here. I think this thing's probably going to go through, honestly. And if I were on the board, for the last year and a half, I've been asked by different people, would you vote for this? Without knowing what I know tonight, my answer was probably yes. After tonight, it probably still is, honestly. It's probably a product of reality is what we have going. So anyway, it's agony for you guys, and I appreciate your. But thank you, you guys. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you,
really.
Tom.
Shannon, nice comments. Everybody, nice comments.
All right, so I don't want to talk for too long, but you said a lot in your presentation about like increased pride, increased sense of community, and it was kind of glossed over at the end. If you do another one of these nights or sessions like this, I'd like to see a lot of more sustenance behind those ideas, because I felt that they were really glossed over, and especially with the larger class size, that it would make it harder for new kids to like find friends and develop, especially since there's so many people, you get overwhelmed. And then once you do make friends, they're probably not going to be in your classes next year due to the sheer number of kids per like grade. And then also, it could help hurt development too with the sheer number of kids. It's harder to fit in because less kids, there's only so many people to hang out with, so you're kind of forced to make friends, forced to develop social skills. Whereas I know a lot of my friends from other schools that are in like big schools with lots of number of kids, if they're not in a club, they don't really have too many friends because there's just so many people that they can't interact with anyone. And then the bus schedules for this, elementary school kids do not like sitting still in the slightest. And currently, as a high school student, my bus route is 65 minutes on a good day, and I cannot imagine trying to put a first grader through that route. And then, like others have said before me, could we see a bi-school system for the elementary, especially because you talked a lot about special needs, but in your presentation for the K through 4 unified school, you had 2 autistic support teachers, 2, et cetera, for the different types. Especially with a bi-school system, you could have 1 per school, especially since Mill Village is kind of the runt of the bunch and we're kind of skewed population-wise. It would make sense to have 1 Robinson and then 1 for the lower, more rural kids, while still having 1 autistic support for school, so that way those kids can have their needs met.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
How many taxpayers are on the district? The total number?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Bernadette, do you happen to know? Sean, if you could get his number, we can certainly call you back with that number, sir.
Yeah, I can see if I can find it online. I just didn't know if
Sure.
anyone knew off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Because the difference is $12 in that one of the final slides, $48 to $35, right? Between those two amounts, and I know you're talking about impact to taxpayers. I just
Oh,
didn't know
okay,
how
yeah.
many-
The
Yeah.
slide that Bernadette presented?
Yes, correct,
Okay,
correct,
gotcha,
correct.
gotcha.
Right. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out, if there's other ways we can get funding. I know with PlanCon dead, PlanCon 2 is in talks, but it's not going anywhere. Can you get any extra basic education funding or any extra special education funding from the state? Can you get extra Title I funding from the feds? Are you exploring any grants? Any other way, if you're trying to ease tax burden for your, population, have you explored getting any kind of external funding if you're concerned about the $12 difference between unification and non-unification?
I guess, first I want to say the difference would be $129 on the millage equivalent of that, correct? However, you brought up a very good point too. I would love for funding to increase from the state and federal government. It's all based on formulas, and it's not something that we can impact nor request additional funding in those areas. Sean, would you have anything to add to that at all? Yeah. And typically, as Sean, sorry.
Right. Okay.
We do, however, have an individual on our staff now that is pursuing grants.
Okay. Yep.
We are actually involved right now in a proposal for a grant on safe walks to school, where we're in a partnership with the Borough of Waterford to look at some sidewalks down High Street here into Circuit, and then along Cherry Street here out by the building, and some additional lighting. So again, without that type of grant opportunity, you're right, that comes back on us as a taxpayer.
Right.
Right.
And just a show of hands, how many people are opposing unification? So almost everyone that turned out tonight is opposing it.
Sure.
So just pointing that out. Has the board announced publicly where they stand at all? Have they made any announcements or kind of indication of who
No.
specifically is for it, against it, anything like that?
I don't know what their discussions are outside of our sessions here. Right now, they are investigating this proposal, so I don't know. That would be a conversation the board would have to have. There has been no formal action taken by them, which is their responsibility if they're going to move this forward.
Okay. And then the cost of savings, when you're talking about staff reduction, you have it listed as 1.17 million.
Yes.
How many new bus drivers are you going to need to hire for the new routes and the new kids to pick up?
As it stands right now,
Yeah.
if we come in at the projected times that we have, we will not need to hire any additional bus drivers.
Are you having issues hiring drivers currently?
No.
Okay.
Did we? Yes.
Okay. All right. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Did we?
signs all
Yes.
over. Okay.
And I don't know how closely you guys have followed this. We have increased our wages for our bus drivers. Yeah. So we have increased our wages, and we are seeing a full staff right now as we sit here today, and we're grateful for that. And we're looking forward to the school year starting without having the concerns that we've had previously.
Okay. Sounds good. And lastly, part of the reasons we feel close to Robinson is because we're in close proximity to it, right? We're
Right.
5 minutes away all the time. It's very hard to feel close to a place that's farther away than Robinson. It's right there. And then if it does get sold, we can all assume, oh, maybe it'll be an old folks home. Maybe they'll sell kittens and puppies. Maybe they'll give, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's private property. Anyone could buy that. Anyone can put whatever building they want there, whatever business they want there, whether you want that business in your community or not, or organization, whoever buys the building. And now it's at the center of our community where our school once was, right? So just another cautionary thing that the citizens are on the hook. You guys get the revenue, but then we're the ones that are still living there, still dealing with whatever happens to that building.
Understood.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you. Oh, yeah, Bernadette.
8,432, Bernadette?
Parcels.
Taxable parcels.
Promise this is my last one. Talking about the finances and whatnot, just kind of had me thinking two things. If I remember correctly, your one slide in your presentation tonight was talking about the declining, I guess, reserves or the
Fund balance.
fund balance.
Correct.
And I believe it decreased 3 million.
2.1 million.
In how many years?
That was a 10-year analysis, Bernadette?
10 years?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying all, but a large part or possibly all of that decrease was the COVID years, if I'm not mistaken. You made a point to point it out.
I did,
We
yeah.
know what happened in those years.
Right.
So is it fair to say those are outliers? I mean, we're not going to have a COVID year, hopefully, anytime soon.
Bernadette, oh, go ahead, Brian, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Finish.
sorry. So that was my question. I mean,
Yeah.
Taking COVID aside, our fund balance really hasn't declined.
Well, it would have, but that was a or a significant part of that decline was those 2 years. Our revenue, typically, Bernadette, and if I misspeak here, make sure you correct me. Typically, I think since 2014 is between -3% to about 6% in revenue, Brian. So regrettably, our expenditures are increasing, and that's not because we're spending money lavishly. We're seeing price increases. We're seeing reduction in funding. So the projection that I gave you is based on just that snapshot. So I can't tell you what's going to happen further down the road, but I can't contest the fact that those COVID years were most impactful in that drawdown.
So our drawdown may not ever be that significant again. Well, it may or may not. We don't know. But, I mean, for that 10-year period, the vast majority of that drawdown
For
was
that
COVID.
particular snapshot,
Yeah.
you would agree, Bernadette, that was a larger portion of our drawdown of fund balance. So that is true.
So as we're projecting, and I don't know that anyone's arguing with you, costs go up and expenses go up.
Sure.
But as we're projecting potential budget downfalls in the future, are we also not, I know state or federal funding might be down, but my understanding is real estate taxes, the school district taxes, has been on the rise. You know, especially I've noted, you know, how much real estate revenue, not just private citizens, commercial businesses and everything, that Summit Township, you know, brings to the district, and we're such a popular township. It's not just people want to live here and move here to Summit for the schools. Businesses want to come to Summit. So when we're projecting increased expenses, are we also trying to take into account increased revenue?
I guess I can start by saying, Brian, the goal is obviously we want to see an increase in the assessed value across our district because that does help us. We have seen some increases in our assessed value. We've also seen some decline periodically, but not very often. So to take into consideration and forecast that is tough to do because it's hinged upon a lot of different things. We mentioned one, which was the federal and state funding, which can go down, and I can't tell you what's going to happen to assessed value unless, Bernadette, you have something to add to that.
And I guess I'm looking more specifically towards increased tax revenue or assessments through new buildings or renovations. And Summit Township has a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter. Every time I open it, here we grow again or whatever. And I'm looking at the millions and millions of dollars that don't necessarily equate. You know, you can build a $10 million addition, that doesn't mean the assessed value went up $10 million, but presumably your assessed value did go up with a renovation. It certainly does with homes. So, you know, Summit is just, and I'm sure Waterford, you know, we have the houses or the buildings, was it on Circuit Street, kind of right across the street here?
Mhm.
So Summit isn't the only community growing, albeit probably at a much faster rate. And I was just wondering, costs are going up, but are we taking into account increased, you know, assessments going up as well?
Mhm.
I guess that was
ahead,
one question. I promise I'll try to wrap this up. I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Can I comment on something, Brian? that
Please,
you
please
had
do.
mentioned?
Maybe
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
remember.
this will jar your memory. This not only benefits our resident homeowners here in terms of reductions in their overall millage contribution, it affects our businesses too. So if you can apply this at a much larger scale, there's savings to be had too for manufacturers, businesses that come in here that own significant property in our or buildings in our district. So there's an attractive part of that too, since we're talking about economic development and things along those lines. So I just wanted to say that.
That's fair, but I don't think we need it, quite frankly, in Summit Township. We don't need to incentivize businesses to come. They're pounding down, they're tripping over each other to come to Summit.
And that very well could be. I am not an economic development expert.
No, but thank you though for that segue or the delay, because it did trigger.
Good.
I don't think anyone here is accusing the district of spending frivolously, and we do appreciate the efforts that are made. If I remember correctly, one of your slides had mentioned that there was an increase in millage, which brought in X number of whatever million. But oh, by the way, that all is going for the cyber or charter or whatever.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the cyber education slide we shared.
So my concern is we have a great thing going. I think we can only save so much, right? So you can't save your way into. I feel like we're not really addressing the root cause of the root problem. Not that we can. We can save all that we want, and we can consolidate or have two elementary school versus one versus three, and we can try to look for ways to pinch pennies. But if we're not addressing the unfairness in the way the state, funds schools, I think that's so. I think the parents, the community is on board to, let's contact our local state reps, our state senators. If the district has a proposed letter to mail, well, let's mail it out. Senator Laughlin, I believe, is senator for some, if not all, of our district. He supposedly was a savior for the City of Erie School District. Maybe Dan will help us out, but I just feel like it's not a bad idea to save money, but we can't save our way into coming out of the problems that we're seeing with the state and federal government. I'm worried that we're going to lose what we have in an effort to try to save money, and it's still not going to be enough. We still haven't saved enough. And now, by the way, we still have a deficit. We still have a shortfall, but we've totally lost what we have. Like we've given that up for nothing, is my fear, or one of my fears.
I do appreciate that, Brian, and I understand where you're coming from with that for sure. I know some guys I could talk to up there, right, Tom? I know he's not involved. I know you're not in anymore. I just said I know some guys. Tom was at one time a Summit Town supervisor. Yeah. Yes.
Hi. First of all, I'm probably the only one in this room that has been through consolidation before with buildings, going 3 to 1. So I can give you some advice on how it happened and, you know, what it's like now, 7 years removed in the building that I'm at. The culture that I came from, the building that we had, was completely lost. It was detrimental to the kids for about 4 or 5 years. So I just want to prepare the community for that. So whatever your little ones have at, my kids went to Robinson. This will be the first year Miss Hopkins doesn't have one of them. I know she's probably disappointed in that. I also want to say that I have had a lot of interaction with Miss Bess Proctor. Congratulations on your retirement. Waterford Elementary is a great school. I have interacted with a lot of those kids. Same thing with Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Holt. I interact with a lot of those kids out in Mill Village. So I know I'm not going to say I know every elementary kid, but I've seen a lot of them, okay? And they're all super kids. One reason why I'm here tonight is going to one school is probably going to be a travesty for you guys. And some of you guys might not have kids in 2030, but for those kids that do go to that building, that consolidation is going to hit hard. And it's going to take years. And you know, I know the scores of your elementary buildings. I've seen them. I'm an educator, 25 years. Why are you trying to mess something up that's already going good? I have no idea. You're going to say it's going to save taxpayers money, but if the taxpayers knew the quality of students that are coming out of the elementary buildings, I think they'd be willing to pay that extra $10 that's coming their way. There is so much more I could say on this topic. I'm just talking about the culture of the building right now and the consolidation that I saw going from 3 schools to 1. And it hurts. It hurts those kids. And these were older kids. I can only imagine what these little ones are going to be like coming through and trying something different. And it will take years for them to get through that. I just hope you guys are ready. Rick, you'll probably be retired by then. But I just hope the community will be ready for something that's about to hit them with these little ones. Other than that, that's all I really have to say, but there is a lot more I could say on this. For example, the roofing that you guys put up there, you bypassed the roof that's going on to the new part of the building on the middle school in your projections. That's a slight oversight on your probably, but when you're looking at money and you're trying to do things the right way, you need to make sure you do your due diligence on that. If you want to take a look back at that slide, you said you're going to send those out. You do not have the square footage on the roofing on the new middle school that you're going to have to add on. So that would, you know, cut that cost, that gap between what you already have compared to what you're going to have. You know what I'm saying? Because you said you needed 3 new roofs, the 3 elementary buildings.
I could do a separate analysis,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you would
But what
have
you
to do
saw
that.
there was
Yeah.
an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
So I could do another
but
slide.
you would have to, because you're adding
Yeah,
on
right.
more roofing, so you would have to add that on.
Correct.
Yeah. And also the transportation's big. That is huge. That was one major area when we consolidated those kids on those buses. It's a long ride. It's a long ride. And your kids are a lot younger than what I had to go through. So just making a point out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there aren't any other questions at all, and trust me, we can stay here as long as you guys need us here. If there aren't any, Sean and I are both available. Our administration team, any of us, would take phone calls on this matter. The presentation that you saw tonight is uploaded onto our website, including the video that we see here. The survey, I hope you got the QR code. If you need a hard copy, we do have one here. If not, we're going to upload that survey link to our website eventually, and hopefully we get some folks who attended one of our, or all 3 of our sessions to fill out that survey information. So That stated, thank you so much for your time tonight. We can't thank you enough. Have a great evening. Thank you.